is when you get hired.
But is that your probationary year?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Obviously, that's after you take your
Yeah.
content. I'm assuming it's after
I'll make a few announcements before we start. The first one is for Module 7, there is a total of 4 certificates need to turn in.
Okay.
And we're also going to open the rest of the sessions so you guys can work on them already if you want to get ahead and be done by the time and finish early. And which one's the last? That's pretty much about it. Just make sure to do the modules. We're already nearing the end of Academy. So make sure you do all the modules already. Modules 8 through, no, it's
It's
6
6
through 12, right?
6 to 12.
And that's about it.
So all of the new ones are gonna be already uploaded, so we can just work on them already.
Yeah, I'm gonna make them all available already. While the session's going on, I'm gonna try to make them all available. So you can go ahead and get ahead if you want to finish already.
So we can start like on all of them already.
Yeah, you can start on all of them already.
Finish them all.
Finish them all and get them out of the way.
Oh man, cool.
That's awesome.
The modules there,
Modules.
It's always been the kind of
Modules and the 4
I
certificates.
already finished all the modules. I might as well finish all the sessions.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Laredo got that?
I did all the modules and you were.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Actually, Laredo, there's about 15 of you, so we hope to hear from you. Get, some questions and some comments. So, my name is Carlos Olvera. Just want to make sure everybody remembers that. I haven't seen you all in a while, and I'll be seeing you today, Wednesday, and Friday, and then on Monday again. And after that, I'll see you until the interview session. So that's that's the culminating activity because it requires somebody be interviewed in the group, and of course the rest of the people would be part of the audience, or not the audience, but the actual interview committee. So, it can be stressful for some people, but it's actually a very good experience. So we're going to cover routines and transitions today, and the reason we're covering this topic is because it ties into, the instructional component. I've explained to you all before, the sessions that you work on in this academy all tie together, and it all goes back to your planning, your instruction, how you're working with students, because that'll be really that'll be the core of your time, okay? Yes, there'll be other activities, there'll be sponsorships, there'll be supplemental duties, there'll be a variety of other activities. But how you are as a teacher, what your style is, that's really what it's gonna come down to. Because like my boss says, that's your money maker. Okay, that's the meat, and that's what gets you paid. Everything else is supplemental. And the reason I bring it up is because there are instances that you might have some educators that, because they benefit from additional duties and additional responsibilities that get them stipends and supplemental pay, they start laxing or forgetting about key components in the classroom. But if you're an instructional person, that's really the meat and potatoes of your job. That's what's going to get you paid. I'll give you one quick example. I walked into a high school and I asked the gentleman. He looked like a coach. Nothing against coaches. He just he was dressed like a coach. You could tell right away. And I asked him, so what do you teach? I'm like, well, I coach boys basketball, sophomore, or I don't know, DJ, JV.
JV.
You can tell I'm not into that, right?
Yeah.
But I go, no, what do you teach? Oh, I teach history. Oh, okay. See, but that's an example of he's so focused on what else he does that, to me that was a little bit of an interesting comment. He prioritized his additional duties versus his actual role as an educator in that school. But, that I wanted to share that because when I go over my sessions, routines and transitions, and then the following ones would be classroom management, it all goes back to instruction, okay? I try to tie everything into instruction because if you got that down, if you have your content down, if you know what you're teaching, plus the fact that you develop your style of delivering your instruction and sharing with the students, then you'll be fine. And of course, you'll have to perfect it. Everybody has a different style. You know, I've shared with you before, there are individuals that are very intelligent, they just can't share it. You know, that happens. And there are people that are not that intelligent, or you know, they're not the brightest, you know, individuals, but they got something in them that allows you to connect with the kids and share the knowledge they're supposed to share. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I'm one of those. Not the brightest tool in the shed, but I can get along with people. I know how to explain things. I have, you know, different styles of explaining, and I enjoy it. So therefore, you know, I've done this for 22 years, and I always joke I've got 20 years left. So just think of yourselves and what your style is. How do you see yourself? Some of you might already be teaching. That's fine. Some of you might have dealt with students or children in different capacities. You know, maybe, you know, I just learned a gentleman was a police officer. So he dealt with students, of course, not in the best light always, but I'm sure there were some bright moments where he got to make an impact. Okay, and those are memorable because you can use that knowledge in the classroom. So to get started, you got 3 documents. Well, not 3 documents, but 3 forms. The first one is this one. This is a t-test, and I always like to share the t-test domain and the t-test dimension that is being covered just by this topic. The reason you got this is because we're going to have an activity that goes with it, but I wanted to print it out for you. That way you can have it handy. The second document you have is the routines and transitions. And by the way, Laredo, you have this in your Padlet. So I just happen to be, you know, John helped me out and he printed these out. But Laredo, you have these in your Padlet. Routines and transitions. These are 4 sort of questions you should be asking and tips that should be that are available to you, because you don't think about these things until you're actually close the door. And that's when it's a little bit late to be thinking about these things when you close the door behind you and you're locked in with 20 kids in the room. The last thing is your index card. Okay, I've shared with you before an exit ticket. You've seen the fish. Y'all remember the fish? Yeah, you can use that. But if you don't have time to print the fish, or simply you want to vary it a little bit, little index card. The expectation is that notes, not notes, but little ideas and, you know, what are you taking with you? What thoughts are you thinking as you learn something? Or what questions you have, jot them down. And we always collect them. I do read them, guys. I can tell you that I don't judge them, but I do read them and I get insight into, you know, what did you get out of the session? Some of you get a lot out of these sessions. Some of you a little bit less. It all depends on your past experience. Some of you are already working. So you're like, well, I already knew that, Hey, wonderful. But some of you don't. Now, my understanding is anybody already in the school, in a school system at this point? You're already in a school system, you remember special ed?
Teacher aid. No,
Teacher aid?
third grade, third grade.
Third grade, I'm sorry. But I know there were some special ed individuals in the
I used to
room.
be.
Okay, that's why. Yes, sir?
I'm currently a sub at IDEA.
Okay, so you're already exposed to a lot of things. So some of the things we comment on or examples you're already familiar with, okay? And that in itself is priceless, especially for the interview session, okay? But make sure you're jotting down your notes or just thoughts as you go through the session, and just you can drop it off on your way out. So to get started, okay, I'm gonna share this with you, okay? This was in your presentation. It's about your influence and what your role is in dealing with the students on a day-to-day basis. You're going to see these students daily. Some of them you might see repeatedly throughout the year or throughout the day. Okay, some of them you actually might see them several times because they might, you know, have to repeat the course or something like that, or summer school. So one of the things that I'd like to share just to get this this session started and it transitions into the classroom management is the one about the teacher, the influence you have. This was, I always pronounce it Haim Ginott, and the person that wrote this wrote it in a very interesting manner, because to us and to me it's a very positive statement. You know, when you're saying that, you know, you've come to a frightening conclusion that, you know, that I am a decisive element in the classroom. It's my personal approach that creates a climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. that statement about the miserable or joyous, that actually took up about 2 hours of my life about 7 years ago. I was in a campus and a parent shows up and tells me, so I'm very concerned with my son's teacher because in her signature of her email, she's got this statement. And I feel that she is saying that she can do whatever she wants with my son and make his life miserable. And I'm like, I'm known for a poker face. So I kept listening, and at the end I said, ma'am, that statement has been around for years. And it's actually a positive statement. She went on to tell me that she had shared it with her sister and, the child's aunt, of course, and that they agreed that it was a powerful, aggressive statement. So, I explained it to the mother, and it was very interesting because in her mind, it was actually a negative statement. And I had never looked at it that way, but in her mind, it was. So I wanted to share that with you because you never know how people are going to perceive things. I perceive it as a positive thing.
I think it's the tool of torture.
Yes, I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. So it's funny how in her mind she saw it as a negative, aggressive statement. She never saw the inspirational section, the joyous component.
Could be insight into the way that she's raising her kids.
Yes, well, that was part of the situation. That's why I tie this into this session and the classroom management, because if that's how she's thinking, how is she approaching the raising of the child? And and she wasn't rude to me or anything. She was genuinely concerned. So we made it a point to clarify to her. The teacher happened to have a planning time around that time, so I called her over and she told her the same thing. And a very pleasant person also. The child had no problem. The child liked this teacher a lot. One of those fun classes that still required a lot of work, but it was the parent, okay? So I wanted to share this with you because your routines and the way you approach your classroom daily, how is it going to be perceived? Whenever I come in, I come in and there's people already here. I start saying hi and asking questions. It's a greeting. It's just a connection. I remember all of you. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember names, but I remember, I think I saw him over there somewhere. I know I saw you somewhere,
Maybe
But
HEB or something.
Every so often, I run into people. I was jumping at Get Air with my kids and I saw one of the ex-cohort people, So I run into people all the time. But you're making that connection. You're gonna run into your students at the store. You're gonna run into your students at Best Buy, at wherever you're at, So you might as well establish that connection. So your routines are very important because what happens there, you're setting up your process, your procedures for your classroom. How many of you have seen little children arrive with their backpacks to a pre-K classroom or kinder classroom? Okay, what is the first thing you notice about when they arrive into the classroom?
They hang them up.
Hang up the backpack? Yeah. They know what to do, right? Little kids know that the backpack goes there, the jacket goes there, the homework goes there, every single day. Teacher said that's where it goes, and that's where it goes. There's no misunderstandings. I'm sure you saw the little videos that I put on the pre-work, 3-minute videos, 4-minute videos.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher with a Purell thing by the door in the restroom. Good idea to make them out of plastic, and she could Purell them after, because kids have accidents. But she had the buckets, she had the baskets. Okay, in the presentation that you saw here, the Prezi, you saw some different baskets in some very colorful areas of classrooms. Those are actually exist. I was visiting my son's teacher at a middle school, and I said, can I take some pictures? Because that's the structure that was there. So your routines are going to be very, very important because that sets the pace. It sets the tone for what you expect. So we're going to go ahead and talk about procedures and transitions, okay? And notice that it connects to classroom management. We're going to talk about specific daily and weekly use procedures. And some of these things you haven't thought about because you might not be in the classroom. But you're going to have to, because by the time you're in the classroom with the kids coming in, it's too late to think about it. So the list that I gave you earlier, we're gonna go over that. We're gonna discuss different transitions, and those could be emergencies or simply changing classrooms, or changing, switching periods. And there's a few resources that I'll point out that you'll be receiving from your district. Whichever district you work at, they're going to give you resources as to how to handle different procedures, okay? I don't have my gadget today, okay? So, when you talk about procedures, folks, you're talking about how is it supposed to be done? What is the process? What do you expect? Do you expect your students to come in and pretty much yapping and talking and just, as you're by the door greeting people and you're kind of keeping an eye out? Because you're supposed to be, this is the door. At a campus, you're supposed to be by the door, kind of keeping an eye on the hallway, make sure nobody gets hurt, and at the same time, you've got students inside the classroom. So that's what you have to decide. What are they doing while I'm here, and I'm keeping an eye over here? So I'm watching both things. Students need something to keep them working. And if you don't give them something to work with, if you don't give them something to be writing on, like a little index card while they're listening, if you don't give them something, they're going to come up with their own thing. I've always used the phrase, idle hands are the devil's tools. I mean, I use it jokingly, but if you think about it, when students don't have something, and even in general, when people don't have something to do, meaningful, they tend to come up with their own things to do. And usually people get in trouble. Okay? So, think of it this way. What are you going to have your students doing while you're at the door? Okay? You can't be inside because you might get called upon by the administrator and say, hey, you're supposed to be helping hallway, along with the administrators and along with other teachers. So what is your expectation? What is your expectation of what the students inside the classroom will be doing? Well, guess what? That requires planning. You might have to get your hands on some worksheets, or simply putting in a journal topic like that one. So when the kids arrive, they already know from day one, you told them, every day you're gonna find a topic there, take out your journal, start writing, share your thoughts. Now you're not gonna you may not score it for grammar, you may not score it for spelling, but you might be scoring it for, do they have complete thoughts? Are they sharing, or covering the topic? And the topics don't have to be detailed. You could even Google journal topics for daily use, and you'll have a whole bunch of them. Okay.
Could they include also like quotes, inspirational quotes?
You could write a little quote. You could. No man is an island. Just put it up there and say, hey, okay, guys, what does that mean to you? And they, okay, well, they'll start thinking about it, but at least they'll be working on something. So while you're welcoming everybody else, they already started working. Okay. If you don't get them used to something, they're going to come up with their own thing to do. I know that in elementary we used to use daily oral language. We would have like three sentences, and they all had little mistakes. A period was missing, a capital letter was missing, something was missing. So the kids would come in, they would copy the 3 sentences, and they would correct the 3 sentences, and then we would just very quickly discuss them. Now, some of you may not be ELA. Some of you may be mathematics. Some of you science. Some of you social studies. Think of topics that would come in handy for you. Even for mathematics, you might, a couple of story problems. 1 story problem. At least that'll keep them busy. Okay? And that's just the welcome, guys. Okay? I can't stress enough, get to know your students. Because once you get to know them, at least they'll work with you. Okay? Students, and this is part of my classroom management, students will do more for you when they feel that you actually are working with them and you care. You care about your job. You care about teaching them something. Okay? Children can sense when a teacher doesn't really care. They can sense it, I mean, you get a vibe that somebody doesn't like you. It happens. Students, and sometimes there's misunderstandings on that too. But think of it that way. what are you going to be sharing with your students as they walk into the classroom? So those are procedures. Remember what I said, procedures are how do you handle things? What is allowed, what different activities you're doing, the on-task time, the procedures that are going to make things run smoothly. You all know that you're supposed to sign in. You all know that, usually if there's a handout, it'll be right around there. And then you have your seats assigned, and for the most part, you just go to the same seat you were at last time. But it all started with a procedure. They had an orientation for you. I'm sure they had an orientation. They told you the way things work. They told you the way the Padlet works, the modules. They gave you the structure for this program. And I think, and I know it's on the website too. So you know what's going on. Now, sometimes people make mistakes or sometimes people forget. Nothing wrong with that. It happens to all of us. We forget things or like, what was that thing? What's the website again? Or what's the login? It happens. So children, it happens to them too. And that's where you're going to have reminders. Nothing wrong with reminders. Remember, you have to let them know, folks. I've had new teachers that naturally expected middle school kids to come in quietly and sit down. And I told her, no, that's not, it's not gonna work with that group. You have to tell them how to, where they're gonna sit. If you need to move the chairs around, move them around. I had a teacher that didn't realize that she could tell a child where to sit. She thought that, she couldn't. And I said, no, this is your classroom. If you decide to move the tables, you move the tables. Whatever will work for your instruction to happen. But she was very shy about it. And she felt awkward. She was about 21 years old. The kids were like 16, 15, 16. So she felt very awkward about it. But that happens. We have a lot of teachers, different ages, and you just have to remember, you're the adult. You're the certified individual in the classroom. So it's your classroom. And I share that story because she had a hard time. She had a hard time establishing procedures because she didn't do it from the get-go. She felt awkward about it, and by the time she tried, the kids were not used to it. So please keep that in mind. Some of you are going to go into education mid-year. Some of you will be hired in January. Some of you will be hired in August. So if you're one of those January people, you're walking into a classroom that's already been half a year running the way it's running, which may be good news or maybe not so good news. Okay? But just be ready. So sessions like this, folks, will expose you to different things and different points that you can use when you go into the classroom. I'm not going to go into the whole session, but just keep in mind, day one, you set the tone. Day one, how you act. Day one, how you set the tone, how you tell people, this is the way I like things, this is what you will be doing, this is where you drop off your homework, this is what the expectation is. You make it very clear from day one. It's not being rude, it's just being direct and to the point. The perfect example I have for that is actually that of a principal. She was a brand new principal walking to a school. I just happened to be visiting, and she was introduced by the assistant principal as a new principal. Little lady, about this time. Okay, not that little, but petite lady, young. And when she got introduced and she walked up to the podium, people, teachers were talking. And this is teachers, and they were talking, and it kind of. People got a little bit rowdy, a little bit loud, and she just waited and kept looking at people, and then she announced that she would start talking when they were ready, and right away people started. But she set the tone that she was not going to compete for the attention. She was not going to raise her voice because she was in charge, and her demeanor was very calm. So think about your first day. You're already in school, and it's working at a school. So think about your every morning, what the procedures the kids use. Every morning, what is the expectation? You're a substitute at a campus. Mm-hmm. So you walk into rooms that already have procedures, And you might walk into some rooms that are not as strict in procedures. I don't know. I'm sure you see variety. Okay.
Some are really, really good about it, and
Okay.
some of them, in other words, some of the kids take advantage of the teachers in there,
Yeah.
and some of them, they just continue the same.
Yeah. You might walk into a room where, and the children will tell you right away. They'll show you right away. If the children follow the procedures, you know that there's a lot of structure in that place. I remember as a teacher, I would leave lesson plans. If I knew I was going to be out, I would leave lesson plans for the teacher. And since I took pictures of my kids and my students, I would kind of put 2 pictures at the bottom and like ask these 2 guys for help. So she knew who to ask for help. Just in case she had questions. But they were good. But yeah, you always gonna have the issue of, oh, it's a substitute. That can be an issue. But it also depends on how you carry yourself. With experience, you get to learn a lot of things like that. But it is from the beginning, folks. You want to set the tone. Remember I told you that when they walk in, it sets the tone. How do you expect them? What do you expect the students to do? If you're laxed and you feel like, well, they're chatting, let them chat, and then I'm going to get started. That takes a few minutes. They're already losing out on time that you could have a little activity for them. And activities are easy to come by. Whatever your content area is, folks, you can always use bell ringers. You can always find little activities, even their journals. Even their little journals, just to have them write something, just to have them do something while they wait for you. Don't let that could be considered downtime. Okay, please be careful with that. Now, like bell ringers can last 3 to 5 minutes, folks. It doesn't take that long, but at least it gives you an insight into what are they doing. Maybe check their thoughts. Can they put thoughts together? Can they explain something? Can they explain a quote that you put on the screen? Can they explain a quote that you put on the board? But sometimes kids will tell you the darndest things in those journals. You'd be amazed how kids will open up to you in a journal. A simple topic like what scares you. And I got to see that in a training, not in a training, but in a class that I asked the students on the board. It read, what scares you? And a lot of the kids were like, scary movies and, just the normal stuff. Some of them even said clowns, of course, clowns can be scary. But one of them, I remember it very well. He said, the police scares me. Okay, and then I kept on reading. Apparently the police had just arrested his father. And he was afraid the police was coming back for the mother. So that's what scared him. And this is a child writing it down in a journal. He wouldn't have said it. He wasn't going to verbalize that. But he wrote it down in about 3 or 4 sentences. So that gives you an insight into what the child's going through. And it was just a simple statement on the board, and the child took advantage and wrote it down. So as a teacher, when you have those little bell ringers on the board, or you want them to share something, read them. Because kids will probably tell you something in there. You might have something to address, or you might just some happy thoughts or something like that. Now, are any of you? I know some of you are already looking at districts, but remind me about your certifications.
Sir, well, I already passed the PPR.
Congratulations.
All level and the physical education all level.
Physical
And
education.
I'm gonna take the EC through 6.
Okay. P.
Easy through 6, yeah, bilingual.
Bilingual. Okay. Mathematics.
Asks the math content.
Mathematics. Okay. And your sir?
Art.
Art. Yes. Okay.
Secondary present.
Secondary. Okay.
Health occupation.
CTE. Okay.
Law enforcement.
Okay. CTE also.
CTE.
Okay. Art or math.
4th grade mathematics.
Mathematics, and then science.
Math, 4th grade.
Math.
Science.
Science. Okay. I remember some of them. Okay. So this is a time where you start thinking, well, how would I keep the students, doing something productive while they wait for me to walk into the classroom? What kind of activity? Okay, you all reviewed the presentations already. You all reviewed the different examples. You saw the videos. Okay, so I'd like to hear some thoughts. What do you see yourself starting or having them, as you greet them, how do you see yourself keeping them busy for those 3 to 5 minutes that things can happen while you greet the students? Okay? Remember I told you, everybody's gonna be sharing, and I do want you to use your teacher voice, okay? Because you wanna carry your voice, you wanna share. You will also be, later on during this session, you're gonna be coming up here sharing some of the other ideas. But what do you see yourself, what kind of activities do you see yourself as a PE teacher, for example, doing as the children come in and wait for you to get started on the lesson?
Well, I really like the idea of the journal, because that keeps them busy for the first 3 to 5 minutes, you know, when you're making sure, you know, doing the attendance or, you know, watching the hallways, like you say, watching the class at the same time. I thought that was really neat.
Now you're PE, right?
Well, PE, but I'm
Oh.
hoping to do EC through 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna test out of that. So hopefully I'll get into an elementary.
Oh, okay. So it's not just strictly PE, okay. Thank you for
Right.
clarifying that. And then you see bilingual, what do you see yourself?
Well, I like the, bell ringers, activities that can connect to the lesson maybe, or hooks.
That's a good point. I mean, if you're teaching about, you know, parts of speech, or if you're teaching about something specific, maybe from the day before, you know, you might tie it into that bell ringer, just as a refresher, you know,
Right.
so they don't forget. So it's always good to tie it to something. You know, I know we mentioned quotes. If you're in English language arts, you know, even a poem. What does this poem mean to you? If you're whatever content area you have, you try to find something. Okay? Yes. What do you see yourself for mathematics doing?
Doing a word problem that relates to the previous day's lesson, but the word problems incorporate like current events or the likes.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, like whether it be a game or a TV show or something like that, incorporate that into the word problem.
Well, that's an interesting approach. You know, whatever makes it relative to the students, they do enjoy that. And you're right, tie it to the lesson that you were teaching, so that at least they'll be reminded, and at least they won't start asking you, hey, how do I solve this?
It'll be a simple
They
problem.
should know. It'll be
Something
simple
that-
enough for them to handle, but keeping them busy at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. In the area of art, what do you see yourself as welcoming them doing something?
I want to talk about, every day I want to talk about this day in art history.
Ah, okay.
And I also want to involve a sketchbook journal. So that way we can discuss what everyone had drawn and something that they can be doing during class as well too.
A sketchbook journal. I've never heard of that one. Can you describe it?
Well, each day they're going to draw something that they think about,
Oh, okay.
and I want them to reflect on what they think about or what they want to draw.
Mhm. So there's no wrong answer.
No.
There's no wrong answer. It's about their creativity
Right.
and really what they're thinking. So I like that. Because I've heard of science journals, math journals, obviously reading journals, but I hadn't heard of a sketch journal.
Yeah, because
Oh, nice.
it's a little book. It's just a tiny book, and it's just.
And it's theirs. It's their own. So you know, wow, their thoughts and their feelings in there.
And that's like higher level
Yes.
stuff, because at college you do stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, they're creating.
Yeah, because I wanted them, because I didn't do that when I was in high school, and I don't think people do that. So
I've never
always
heard of
wanted to
it.
read.
That's well, see, it's always good to hear something new. I like that. You know. You
Mireya.
mentioned
Health science?
health science. What do you?
Yes. Maybe looking up in the web for a health science article.
Health science articles. There's a lot of new technology coming up, a lot of new things. You know, what do you call those prosthetics, things like that, or just in the area of health. There's so much going on. I always get a kick out of those commercials that tell you, you know, this medicine will fix this, and there's like 30 side effects. Like, never mind. I'll just live with this. You know, it's scary, but yeah, you know. Think about it. And I love those commercials because I start counting, and even my children, I like, okay, count. So we're counting how many things are the side effects, and then I tell the kids, you see that? That medicine fixed this, but it has a possibility of all these side effects. And they get a kick out of that.
And on the rare occasion, death.
Yeah, and on occasion.
And they say it real nicely.
Yes. On occasion, death, you know, okay. But you know, it's funny, but it's reality. They have that's their disclaimer, you know. So you know, you model that, and I mean, so a simple commercial would spark a conversation,
Yeah.
you know. in the health sciences, I mean, you could literally ask them, what do you all think? Write down your thoughts. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? You know, dry throat, dry mouth, like I can live with that, it's okay. You know, sir?
Well, law
thought-
enforcement, I can put down 5 sections of the penal code on the board and have them, look them up, and then everything that follows. The fine, the prison time, which you can get, different categories, felonies, misdemeanors. I am that, but it'll be the beginning of tomorrow's session. So when that comes, you'll be familiar with it already. But then when that day comes, I'll put 5 more that we're gonna do the following days. Well,
And it
I'll
led
keep
itself.
them, up to date, ahead at least those 5 sections.
And that area, I mean, of law is so, because they see a lot of things on the news. And there's a lot of misunderstandings. And there's a lot of, is that legal, is that not legal? So that, they're all interesting, but what you bring to it and how, those little bell ringers at least will spark a conversation. And they might spark a debate, for all you know. You might have a little debate going, but that's okay, as long as the debate is, done correctly, and they express their thoughts, and then, clarify misconceptions, because many times the children have thoughts that they get from their parents. And if the parents aren't informed, there's a lot of assumptions made. So, I can just imagine how interesting that'll get. So for mathematics,
Forgive me, my voice failed me, but when I was in high school, one of my favorite ones was my teacher would post past and or current events, and they would always be like loosely tied to math, like a new plane was designed that could go so and so fast and so hours. But what I really liked about them was that it sparked conversation.
Yes.
And it really helped to like open up and connect with students and the teacher. And just, by conversation and it was also loosely tied to math. And that's what I
Yeah,
liked.
current events tied to math. And there's so many things nowadays, I like the example you gave, a new plane was designed and how fast does it fly? And it's amazing when you start looking at those numbers, like really that thing can move that fast, Or you tell a child, well, yeah, you 45 minutes, you're in Houston, or 5 hours, you're in Houston. Which one do you want? So, I mean, that's good. I like the way you're connecting that.
So what I was thinking is, aside from giving them like a quick review from the previous day, like maybe like 1 or 2 problems, maybe like giving them a random fact, like for instance, like this word means this in a different language.
Oh.
So something to
get their attention.
Yeah, in other words, yeah, like a hook. In other
Yes,
words.
like a
It doesn't have to be like, for instance, like language. It can be like you were saying, something current, or it could be something, out of the ordinary. Like, did you know this? Or-
Fun facts are
facts.
great. I'm a big fan. And I'm on video on this one. I'm a big fan of those bathroom readers. They're books, and it's all about simple facts, different facts. Where did the baker's dozen come from? Why do they call it? What do they call it? The box office. It's just fun facts that you don't really think about that are part of our culture, part of our language. And I enjoy those a lot. It's a thing with me. So I can see how fun facts will get the kids' attention. Okay. Then science.
I really like the journal idea, having a journal that stays in the class. Have a section with them and demonstrate open-ended questions related to the content. And if I don't have a question for that day, or if we're ahead of the lesson plan, give them an open-ended statement as to why science is important, or is it all around us all the time, to get them thinking and engage the higher level thinking, spark the conversations.
You made a good point. It's all around us. I mean, science is all around us. You also made a good point that stays in the classroom. Some of the things that you'll all pick up on is, you'll learn very quickly, because if it doesn't work for you, you're going to find out very quickly that it doesn't, that whatever procedure you started, and it really doesn't jive with the kids, you'll find out very quickly. So, locations. Where do you have your materials? Where do you have your boxes? Where are you expecting the homework? Where are you expecting the journals to be? Are you going to expect the kids just to, leave them in their desk, or are you going to have a designated section? Things like that, you have to be very aware about. So when you go into the classroom and you start looking at the layout of the classroom, you start thinking, what? When the kids come in, I want them to drop off their stuff here. Some of you are going to be in elementary, so you got to think little guys. Others are gonna be in high school, secondary. So you gotta think, okay, how am I gonna get around this classroom? This is an interesting layout right here, because it's almost like lecture room style, okay? But of course you have tables. So I have to be constantly turning, I have to be doing this. I'm actually restricted to about right here and about right about there. So I can't move around that much. Normally I like to move more, but I forgot my mouse. My mouse, I put it in the dongle, so I have to be here, okay? I don't like to usually be here. But it's good that you're already thinking about these things, because whatever classroom you walk into, you know, and you see it all the time. Some of you have children and you go and visit for parents' night or open house, and you start checking out the teacher's, you know, layout. Well, how do they have it? Do they have the desks in fours? Do they have rows? You know, remember old school, all rows? And who sits in the back? You know, who sits in the front? Or who gets sat in the front? It happens also. So those are the kind of questions that you should be thinking about. The restroom. How many of you thought, oh, you know, restroom can become an issue? Some of you have seen examples of restroom passes that vary from little cute little passes to, I've seen a teddy bear inside a Ziploc bag used as a restroom pass. The Ziploc bag, of course, you know, was so the teddy bear wouldn't get dirty. I've seen a wooden piece of something, you know, just a wooden piece, wooden piece of restroom, and you had to, but then they had to take it away because kids were messing around with it. You know, it became a weapon. I've seen the one of my favorite ones was a card, like the one the gentleman is wearing. We made them at a middle school, and we had the librarian. We totally took advantage of our librarian and said, hey, do you have any more of those cards, you know, for the library cards for the kids? She goes, yeah, I have red and I have blue. And I'm like, good. So grade level, 6th grade got red, 7th grade got blue, and the other grade level got green or something like, or white. I don't remember. But the reason we did them like that was because if we saw you in the hallway, you know, you had to wear your card. And if you were a 7th grader and you were in the wrong hallway, we could tell right away. So we had a set given to every teacher, like those. They got the restroom, the nurse, and the office. That's it. That's all they got. So each teacher got 3 of those badges with a lanyard, because I had gone to a technology conference, and at the end of the technology conference, I had asked somebody, hey, are you gonna get rid of those things? Yeah. Can I have them? So they gave me like 300 lanyards. You'd be amazed what they give away. Technology conferences, if you ever have a chance to go. You'd be amazed what you walk out of there with, okay? Especially if you ask. So that was our procedure that we used at that middle school. And the kids liked it because you could tell right away. If it was white, that was an 8th grader. And you happen to be in a 6th grade wing right now. So right off the bat, we could tell. And you know, it worked for us. But some of you might end up using the sign-out sheet like the one in the Padlet. There's this little sign-out. So the kids ask, can I go to the restroom? Yeah, okay. Sign out. Why would that sign-out sheet help you?
To track how many times they
The
go.
time that they,
Who went and how long they were out?
Yes, who went and how long they went, because you know things can get out of hand. Some kids, and they do it strategically. They know that at this time I'll meet you in the hallway, and they're in different rooms. It happens, or they'll do a walk by. They'll pass by the window and they'll go like this, and the person saw them. Can I go to the restroom? And they just go meet up. They go meet up outside. It happens. Okay, so the tracking form is great. Of course, you have to train the kids. That's the tracking form. If you don't follow that procedure, you won't be allowed. Yes,
Will that
ma'am.
be for high school students?
Can you use it for high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use it for anybody. Remember, children are trainable. Whatever you train them to do, whatever you expect and you monitor, they'll do. But you have to set the expectation. You have to let them know what you expect, model it for them, and then monitor it. Yes.
We used like a mix of all 3 of them.
Okay,
Where
okay.
where the kids would, you know, they raise their hands, they use a silent signal to be able to go to the restroom, but they had their own passes.
Oh, okay.
To where you could track it to see how many times they went.
Uh-huh.
The teacher would sign it, put the date, and put like the timeout.
So the child has their own passes.
Exactly.
Okay, I've seen that variation. Yeah.
And the only problem we had with that is it was in elementary, so a lot of the kids would lose the pass. The teachers wouldn't let them go, and there would be a lot of accidents.
Yes.
So that's the only downfall that I had.
Yeah,
for
so see,
that.
there was a flaw in the system there, you know. I know about the passes because I've had middle school students that tell me, well, I have 3 passes for the 6 weeks. And if I don't use them, I can cash them in for 5 or 2 or 3 extra points in the final grade or something like that. So they wouldn't go to the restroom because they wanted to cash in the passes. And some of them would use them because they had to. So see, the thing about that is you want to be careful about accidents because nobody wants to be embarrassed. Plus, you don't want parents to come in. Well, my child says you can't. You don't let them go to the restroom. That's another factor.
Big no.
Big no-no. I mean, I had a pair of twins, and the mother happened to work for VSD. I was a teacher at the time, and the twins kept going to the restroom a lot. And I asked them, are you all okay? Is there something I should be aware of, a health issue? No. And then I called the mom, and, ma'am, is there something? He said, no, Miss Rivera, that's just the way they are. And I said, okay. Well, we'll have to work something out, and I don't want to have an accident, but because you're telling me that you took them to the doctor and there's nothing wrong with them, then I'll have to, just work with them. So they would kind of take turns, but they wanted to go together. They were twins, and but I had to work with it, and I was patient, and the mother appreciated it. Plus, they were good students, so they weren't missing out. Okay. But it was a very special situation because I had to be very tactful. It's like, is there something I should be made aware of, any medical condition or something? And she right away told me, no, I've taken them to doctor. Physiologically, nothing's wrong with them. They just go a lot. Okay, so you might run into situations like that, and the best thing to do is investigate first. What could be the problem? Because there are children that actually have medical conditions, and you wanna be tactful about it, because the restroom can always be a very sensitive issue, especially if an accident happens. I knew of a colleague of mine from another district that nope, you're not going. You need to wait till I'm done. And the 3rd grader, 2nd grader, pooped. So there you have, and okay, now I got involved the nurse. The nurse gets involved, although the nurses don't like that because they don't feel it's a medical emergency. But we explain to them that it's requires that the children be isolated or separated while the parents get there with clothing. But it was a very uncomfortable situation for everybody. The child, of course, the teacher that heard it from the parent, because I don't think any of us would appreciate our child, having an accident, a level 2 accident in the classroom. You know what I mean? Laredo's awfully quiet, so I'm hoping Laredo will jump in there any minute now.
Right now, what's going on at my school is the kids are putting their arms in the dryers and burning their
Inside the dryer?
the little dryer thing.
Oh, okay, they're leaving there.
So we're gonna take that down.
That's why we have paper.
Burning their hair.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a
So
thing.
either they roll up all the paper and
No, they haven't even thought about that yet.
okay, wait till they do.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, yeah. Children are amazing. I had the custodian years ago, like 12 years ago, the custodian come to me, so Vera, I need you to see this. And I go, what is it now? I need you to see this. It was the urinal, and the child had pooped in the urinal. And I'm like, first of all, do you really? Why do you make me see this? You couldn't describe it?
You wouldn't believe me.
Something to that effect, like, I needed you to see it. Like, I don't need to see this, just clean it up. But you know what? What happened was that the stalls were busy, the child was dying, and he had to go. He did what he had to. Better there than the floor. But he did it. He pooped in the urinal. And it happens, guys. Kids will, they'll do whatever they can or what to, But it was something that to this day, I still see the custodian like, really, did you have to make me? And, it was, apparently he needed an administrator to witness it. That was one of those crazy things. So just keep in mind, when you are giving permission, to this day, wherever I'm at, if I'm in a restaurant, wherever I'm at, and I'm looking for the restaurant, I'll go like this. Because that's, the symbol
sign
for
language.
restaurant. And I trained my students to do that because if I was teaching and they wanted to go, all they had to do like this, and I would just go like, very subtle, no interruption.
We have that system.
Yeah, and it works out
It works
nicely.
pretty
The
good.
kids
They know
get
it.
used to it. So as an adult, I'm asking other adults, And it's funny, but a lot of people don't know what that means, and a lot of them do. So, you know, it's all good. But just keep in mind, you're gonna deal with this at some level, okay? At some point, you're gonna be dealing with this. When you're creating groups, folks, when you're having people cooperate, or collaborate in the classroom, and you say, okay, let's break up into groups, and I need you to work on this little task. There's the steps on your desk. You're gonna be very precise, because if you don't tell people what to do, they're just gonna make up their own mind. Okay, we had a training today, adults. We had a training on SLO, Student Learning Objectives. It's a new thing for T-TEST. And they're like, okay, y'all break up into groups. One of you write, one of you, is going to be talking, one of you is going to be writing, one of you is going to be narrating, whatever. So we chose who it was, but we were given specific instructions. If you just tell students, okay, get into a group and make something, they're going to pretty much, some of them may not get involved, some of them may start chatting, some of them, you need that structure. Be very precise. If you have 4 students, give each one of them a job. That way, when they do their job, each one of them does it, it'll be very obvious that they did collaborate. And they can talk. There's nothing wrong with students talking. If anything, so long as they're talking about what's going on in the classroom instructionally, that's wonderful. As an administrator, when I would walk into a classroom and I would see students talking about the topic, I like that, because they're sharing their thoughts, they're sharing their comments, their feedback. Now, I also walked into classrooms that were super quiet. The kids had a worksheet with 20 story problems or 3 passages and a bunch of questions. They were working also. They were just not verbalizing. So what we would tell teachers is, there's nothing wrong with that, with the quiet get to work, so long as you mix it up with discussion. Remember we talked about current events and it sparked discussions? That's what you want. You want students to share their thoughts. Because if students are not comfortable sharing their thoughts, they're not going to say anything. And if they're not saying anything, they're going to learn less. You all shared a few thoughts right now, a few minutes ago. Not only are you learning, but your colleagues are learning from you. And they're here like, oh, okay, I like that idea. Nothing wrong with that, folks. I've always shared that the doer is the actual learner, okay? I know this stuff because I lived it for 22 years. You guys are learning it and you're experiencing it. But you've also had experiences. You've been in the classroom. You remember those teachers that had super strict procedures? And you remember teachers that you could pretty much do whatever you wanted in there, so long as nobody got stabbed, everything was good. Remember that teacher? You don't have to name the teacher, but you had one. We all had a teacher that, guys, just don't get hurt and we're okay. I remember that teacher. Then I was one of the quiet ones. We would chat, but we wouldn't do any damage, but he just wanted to make sure that we were okay. This same teacher taught us a lesson that he was going to get evaluated on. He taught us a lesson the day before, and the day of his evaluation, he taught it to us again. One of the kids like, sir, didn't we do this yesterday? So, it happens, guys. It happens. But what kind of teacher are you already envisioning yourself as? Nothing wrong with being firm. But of course, you have to have those procedures in place. If you're going to do the group work, folks, I like these rubrics. Set the expectation. What are you expecting the students to perform? I know that may look sloppy, but if you think about it, rubric, economic system writing assignment, accuracy of information, you get 5 points. Use of supporting facts, 5 points. Composition, 5 points. Grammar, usage, 5 points. Outline, 10 points. So it's a maximum of 5, 10, 15, 20. It's about 30 points max. The child got 27 out of 30 points. Well, that's a percentage right there, 90-something. But see, that tells the student what the expectation is. Okay?
I have a question from Laredo.
Oh, great. Laredo has a question. Who is asking?
Analito.
So, just to wrap this one up right here, when you tell students about your procedures in working collaboratively or your procedures in working with assignments or projects, let them know how it's going to be judged. Do you all know how your assignments in this academy are being scored? Or you all submit assignments, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, they're getting scored, and you have to go through the motions. Anali Torres, I'm sorry, I was wondering if you have an activity that could keep students in a unit in special education busy at the beginning of class. Well, in special education, it depends. If you're talking about life skills students, there's a lot of hands-on manipulatives that special ed teachers use. I know that they're starting to integrate a lot of technology in special ed life skills units, if that's what you're talking about. If you're talking about maybe slow learners or students that struggle because they're special ed, a lot of times they can do many of the same bell ringers. It's just that you might have to have less of it, or maybe instead of giving them 3 problems, you give them 2 or maybe 1, depends. But if you're just talking about a unit, I would do a lot of hands-on. I know that some units in special ed were getting their iPads, and they had whiteboards and things like that, so the students were doing a lot of hands-on activities. That's what I would start, and at least that'll keep them focused, okay? If that's what you mean by unit. I hope that helps, Anali. Thank you for asking. If it didn't and you want to clarify the question, feel free to do so, okay? Going back to the rubrics, these are just examples that were part of your presentation. And remember, folks, you don't have to invent the wheel. A lot of these things were already done. Somebody did them out there. Have you ever heard of teachers selling teachers? What is it? Teachers? Teachers paying teachers, something like that. Teachers are creating templates. I have created so many templates for the different jobs that I've had, and I never put my initials. And somebody told me, you should really put your initials because you've created something. I go, it doesn't make a difference to me. But the funny thing about that is that I discovered that one of my forms from about 15 years ago was actually in Washington State. And I asked, well, how did it get out there? It so happens that one of my colleagues had some relatives that were teachers over there, and they shared the form with them. So next thing I know, a school is using my form for some testing that I was doing. So you never know what you're gonna use, folks. Don't ever feel like, oh, I'm not gonna make that. A lot of times it's already made for you. You download it as a Word document, you adjust it to your needs, and you got yourself a template, a form, a rubric, anything like that. I'm involved in coding for the district, and we're having challenges 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks we're having challenges, and we have to come up with a rubric to judge, some coding products that the kids were making. And I told the technology guys, well, what rubric do you want to use? And they said, well, we'll find one, we'll adjust it to our needs, and then we'll use that one and standardize it for the district. That was it. It's not a big deal. So don't ever feel that you have to make the form. Don't ever feel that you have to design a bathroom pass, on your own. Your campus might give you one. You can always find one online. Google it. I mean, seriously, nowadays you can Google anything. Okay? Classroom layouts. Some of you are going to have beautiful classrooms like that. Look at all that color, all that wood. That's real wood. Those things are heavy. Some of you will walk into a classroom like that. Some of you might walk into classrooms that are more like this. Based on your content area, what do you expect? Do you want tables along the side with computers, if you have computers? Do you want your desk to be coupled up, or maybe 4 together? Do you want the rows to be straight? What will be your expectation based on what you're teaching? Look at that little loft. Well, it's like a little loft up there. That's very nice. The kids get to go and read up there. Would I trust middle school kids in that little loft? No. I wouldn't trust them up there. I would trust a fourth graders up there, third graders. They think it's fun, they're reading, they're enjoying. Okay?
Treehouse, that's what it is.
It's like a treehouse, yeah. Yeah.
I'll take a nap.
Very nice.
Oh, no. Some people take it to yeah, you'd be amazed. A lot of teachers have relatives or spouses that are handy with woodwork and all that, and they design things for them. It's amazing. I remember one of my colleagues at an elementary, he didn't like desks. He had a thing about desks. I don't like desks. Okay. So he brought in a sofa, he brought in a picnic table, he brought in some other kind of table, and his students sat in those things. And they learned. They were fine. The kids were fine. You know, and there was a lot of discussion. He was very hands-on, a lot of discussion, a lot of interaction. And when they had a writing assignment, they had to go to a picnic table or another type of table, sometimes like those. And if they had a reading assignment, they would read quietly in the sofa. But they were so comfortable reading on the sofa or the bean bags. Okay? So it all depended. Look at this one. You've got bigger groups. On this one, you've got bigger groups. Let me see if I can expand it. Okay? You've got bigger groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 students looking that way, the other 2 students looking at each other. You've got the projector mounted over there. A teacher's desk is right over there. But no, what else do you notice about this classroom? I always get a kick out of this classroom.
The walls are bare.
The walls are bare, even though it is a colorful classroom. The walls are bare. What else?
The file thing on the back, the red ones.
Filing cabinets. This is like an organized. This is like a very structured kind of place here. The walls are bare, and that's actually the beautiful real estate. Walls is where you can show off the students' work. You don't have to go buy. I mean, you can if you want to, but you don't have to go buy posters and all that. You can just put the students' work. If anything, when I walk into a classroom and I see student work, that means students have been working. That says a lot. Little trash cans. Did you know the little trash cans?
Nice.
This person doesn't like messy.
Clutter.
Yeah. And there's a lot of room to walk through. So the teacher gets around, a lot of space. Now granted, there's 5, 10, 15, 20. I see 20 desks. So maximum is 20 students. Some of you will walk into a classroom like that. Some of you walk into a classroom with 25, maybe even 27 desks, because you need them, okay? But you can tell there's a lot of little fighting going on there. And look at this area right here. What do you think that's for?
The do now, or the
Or objectives,
welcome.
maybe?
Objective, the do now, the bell ringer, anything like that, special announcement. That's where the announcements are, the calendar, or whatever. This is instructional everything, okay? Some people like to put the little strips right here for the alphabet. This might be a math chart. Notice that every desk has these things, so something's there. There's math teachers that have the students tape the math charts that they use in STAR. They have them taped to the side of their desk, so whenever they need them, they just go like this. Okay. And it's good. It's good that they use them, because if they have STAR, they're gonna have it available to them. You'd be amazed how many teachers in math they'll share the formulas, but they never actually share the math chart that's available on the TA website. So that they have STAR, the kids are like, "What's this?" Oh, it's the math chart. You're supposed to be using it. Well, I never used it throughout the year, so why am I gonna use it now?
Yeah, I have no idea what's on it or how
I have
to
no idea
do
what's on it. I have no idea how thick it feels, and the fact that it's got a ruler on it. It actually has a little ruler on there, and the formulas that they need to know that might help them, or maybe not. Little things like that. Whatever you get the students used to, Look at that computer desk. There's one problem I find with this one every time.
Can't see the monitors.
I wouldn't be able to see their monitors.
That's the problem.
Unless you have the software that allows you to see everybody's monitor on your monitor, I think it's called Synchronize. That's one version. Really, you don't know what's going on. Okay? So you have to be careful with those kind of layouts.
It's like my graphic design class.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
And when you have a class like that,
Huh?
can you also like put up those big mirrors, like the ones that they have in like a convenience
You
store?
could.
Yeah.
That's the problem I had. I couldn't see all my monitors.
Yeah. You could put mirrors, you could put mirrors back here, or you could get that software, Synchronize, and it'll show you everybody's monitor, and you could send out reminders, or you could launch applications. I remember using a setup like this one time to do a training, and I launched the application, and the teachers couldn't go and check their mail. They had to stay with my application because I was controlling other computers. So that worked out nicely. You know, other layouts, groups of threes, the carpets, the computers. This one, I actually witnessed this one. The problem I had with this one is that the teacher, when the teacher was helping these guys, you know, what's going on over there? The teacher had to be very careful. And then if she wanted to go to the other side, she had to walk either all the way around or cut across. So there's no perfect layout, guys. Whatever works for you, okay? Whatever works for you. I have a thing about that beam right there right now, okay? It's bothering me, but we can't tear it down. So it is what it is, okay? Other examples right here, tables. I like the fact that these have wheels on them, because on this one you can relocate and resort them out anytime. Just move them around. There's one video in your presentation where the teacher has layout 1 and they switch. I like the way that she does that. She's trained them to move around efficiently.
I think it was like 3 layouts.
Yeah, she had like 3 layouts. Like one layout was for focus on the teacher, another layout collaborative grouping. You know, I forget the 3rd layout, but the fact that she took the time to train them on the 3 layouts, it helped her. So those are just examples. This is lecture hall style. This is college. Okay, this is where I'm over here and I'm giving you all that information, and hopefully you get it. And if you don't get it, well, that's your problem. That's what happens, guys, with these. You got to be careful, because by the time I walk around to go and see what you're up to, that's gonna take too much time. So that's lecture mode. The thing about lecture mode is the students need to be talking also. Some of you may end up in lecture halls because there's no other room, so they'll give you like a little lecture hall. Okay. This is traditional. Okay. You're in the front. Look at the guy in the back. Hopefully they're paying attention. Very traditional. So the reason I share these with you is because you're going to be wrapping up the academy soon. You're going to be interviewing. So you need to be aware of the different layouts, What's the expectation? The leaving procedure. The bell's going to ring no matter what, folks. But how you set up your procedure, what you remind them of. If you allow them to walk out just the way, whichever way they want, they'll get used to that. I was visiting an elementary it was last Friday, and we were going up the stairs. It was one of those 2-story elementaries. And as the person was walking with me, she saw a child going down the stairs, and she asked him, "Where are you going?" She really needed to know where he was going because she didn't know. And he just kept on walking and talking to her. And I was like, hold on. He, obviously he didn't have it clear in his mind that if an adult talks to you, out of respect and courtesy, you stop and you answer the question. But she was allowing it. She just kind of like, okay, where are you going? And the kid kept on walking. And so I like, come here. She's talking to you. I'm sure you're a nice little boy, but your action right now is rude. And he was like, oh, okay. Didn't face him. But see, if you allow that, they'll get used to it. Children will get used to it. How many of you have witnessed this? You're talking to somebody and a kid passes by in front of you, in between both of you. That's I'll just say, oh, hold on, go around. It's rude to walk between people. But if you don't do that, they'll just keep on walking in between you all. It happens. I have an issue with that, little things like that, because children get used to whatever you allow them to get used to. Okay? It happens. It happens a lot. And once they know, like, oh no, he doesn't like for people to cross in between, because it is rude. But you're talking to somebby and they're passing by como si nada. Of course, you might consider getting a little bit closer so that you kind of close the gap, and that way they have to go around you. How many of you have been in a middle school during in between periods where they're switching? Isn't it like salmon? It's like seriously, some schools they're like salmon. It's like a wave of kids walking by, and you got to jump in the stream and go with them. And, you know, and sometimes you have to kind of get out and get back in, and it's some of these schools, because they're big schools, a lot of kids, you have to work with it, you know?
Yeah, I've been going to Los Fresnos to do some observations, and I've been going to the different math teachers.
Yes.
So between periods, I'm switching. So yes, I get out of the classroom and
Take it.
here's my exit.
Yeah, here's your exit. It's like Nemo, and you know that the current. You gotta get out when you can, otherwise it'll just take you with you. But yeah, that's how, because it's a lot of kids. It's a lot of kids, and they're trying to get to their class, and some of these kids are big guys.
The middle school.
You know, so you try, and
The
you
middle
know.
school by the zoo, which one is that?
The one by the
Cummings.
zoo, that would be,
Yeah.
that's now a high school BLA. It used to be Cummings, now it's BLA High School. Yeah, a lot of kids. Now it's got about 180 kids, so it's smaller.
So what is it now?
It's a BLA, Brownsville Learning Academy High School.
So where did they put Cummings? Did they just?
Cummings was dismantled, and the kids were sent to Falk and Stella, I believe.
So they closed Cummings
What
as
is it?
well? Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
I'm sorry?
is it like
BLA? BLA is a sort of alternative campus. There's two versions now, BLA Middle School and BLA High School. And they're for students that aren't over age. They're over age. They're off cohort. And what that means is, like, you have your graduating class that you're supposed to be with, and if you start failing or you start getting too old for your group, you have an opportunity to go to BLA, middle school or high school, and regain some credits and accelerate. And then you can probably come back, or you might just finish at BLA. You got to remember, folks, not everybody functions in a public setting. You know, there are individuals out there that cannot handle a classroom of 30 kids. And I'm talking about the students. The child cannot handle being in a classroom of 30 other children or 20 other children, because he might lose focus, he might act up. But they'll function in a smaller, with 10 kids, they'll be fine there. And that happens. There are children. I mean, a friend of mine would phrase it, well, they don't function well with the general population. They function better with a smaller population, more controlled environment. And you know, some kids do. We've actually had students that go to BAC, the alternative, the alternative center, because they get in trouble for drugs, for gang affiliation, stuff like that, and they'll say, "Sir, I want to stay here because here they got us so controlled. I can't get in trouble here, and my friends, they can't tell me, they can't pressure me, influence me. I'd rather stay here. I don't want to go back to the big school." There's kids that actually say that. So what does that tell you? I'm glad they're aware that they'll function there. The problem is, once they're done with their time, they gotta go back. So there's been instances that they actually get in trouble just to stay there. And then they finish. Yes, ma'am.
Is that like the STARS program?
STARS, different districts use different names, but here the BAC program is the Brownsville Academic Center, and it's for students that have done something, whether involving drugs or violence or fighting, things like that, some heavy duty stuff. They get pulled out. They still are receiving instruction, but in a very controlled setting. Okay, and there's even drill sergeants and things like that. It gets tough.
Is that like the alternative center?
That is a type of alternative center. Lincoln Park. BSD happens to have Lincoln Park, the school for the girls that are pregnant. That's an alternative center because it's not
pregnant teens.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they have a choice. They can go if they want to. They don't have to, but they have that option. Yes. They're given a choice.
You don't have to, but you're encouraged to.
They're, yeah, you know.
Or they teach them at home, don't they? They have somebody-
There is homebound, but that's usually, you're talking about some, maybe they cannot go to school for different reasons. And some of them, because they might have a very difficult pregnancy, they might actually be homebound.
Or after delivery.
Or, yeah, they cannot make it to the campus, because they do have daycare, by the way. They have daycare. There's no excuses. You know, like, oh, who's gonna take care of the baby? It's a daycare.
And Webb
On-site
Elementary,
daycare.
is that?
Webb is now a CTE campus. Well, it's actually, it was the hairstyling, hair, what do you call it?
Cosmetology.
There, it was that for a while, and it's now moving to where Cummings used to be, along with BLA High School.
Where's Webb?
Webb is in the middle by there's a Lopez near it, but it's like a little island, a whole block. That was the school. But my understanding is they're moving out. Yeah.
Is that a school web?
Webb that's an old school.
In Bronzeville?
Yeah, you
That's
know
what
about
game-
Webb, that's,
That's what used to be pretty intense.
yeah.
In
I
Bronzeville?
don't even
Yes,
live
ma'am.
there,
It's by
but that was
Lopez
like
by
the
14th
place to
Street.
play
It's
basketball.
13th
I
Street.
know where
Or
that
Lopez
is.
Meat Market.
Yeah, it's catty corner to
Is,
Lopez,
Lopez
around
That's where the
there.
old.
That's where the old alternative center
Yeah, the
was.
old
Yeah,
courthouse.
There was an alternative center there
Yeah, it was an
too.
I remember
alternative
that.
center.
So a lot of these buildings, they're just recycled and reused, because they last a long time. Yeah, they're some of the safest buildings, by the way, because if you're in a hurricane, you wanna go to those old buildings.
El Jardín, that's the
El
best place to
Jardín
go.
Elementary, that
Hey, Harley.
That's the
Hughenden
best place to
Elementary
go.
is old, but those buildings are solid, I mean, it's amazing. So, exiting procedures, we have a question? Oh, it's time for a break, wow, before you know it. Okay, John, Laredo, hopefully you have more questions, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. Okay.
I had this one kid. He would take his medicine for, I think it was ADD, and he wouldn't let him go to the restroom.
Okay, good, I got a charge.
He would force himself. Like, this is him. Like, one time I was like, no, you're not gonna go. There's somebody else. He said, okay, but remember you told me that I wasn't gonna go? Like, okay. And like I walked by him. He told me I couldn't go, so I did it here. And then he did it again. He did it in the class next door, and you could see him doing this. No. He did it there like 3 times. He did it with my class once. I was like, okay. Yeah.
I mean, the ad for the
Those are students that
you know, I can
Okay,
see
so-
easier.
so
when he's listening to music, not listening to music.
What I would do is I would set up where I won't take away your phone, put it in this bin. When you walk out of class, pick it up.
I don't see, that's the
If-
thing, I have an issue with that. I don't see parents doing that.
See, the thing is, I mean, I feel like that was a little bit I'm not sure about I mean, first I would know because I know that specifically at the school I worked at for 2 years, if they see any of them in the school, they get picked up. No questions asked. And I mean, I was honestly,
Everything else I can worry about.
what I would do, I think one day instead of being able to buy, I had them all in my back pocket, so I would just like grab one of these,
when they go in,
tape it, name, why I picked it up, what class I picked it up, turn it into the alphabet.
so they know what.
And I mean, I had no problem doing
So when they.
it. I know, that's like the best.
But then they can make sure like parents were getting consent.
One entrance.
We have them on.
And,
Exactly.
before they come to school,
And I mean, that's one of the things that, I mean, I worked at an elementary.
yeah, they check everything.
The thing about it is that, say, for instance, the students are taking a test. It's supposed to be dead silent. The principal walks in and hears the cell phone ring. What she didn't think.
No gum, no candy.
What she didn't think.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was very, very totalitarian.
They have their
Give me the
own
phone. I took it.
I was gonna say, where do they have them?
Exactly. Because I mean, the way she's seeing you have control over this, you don't have a policy making, so you don't have a procedure over this.
Yeah, but that's crazy though. Like, technology.
And then the other one that.
Man, I remember getting my first cell phone when I was 17.
They have
It
a
was a
shirt that
brick.
says,
I remember throwing that thing at walls and they wouldn't break.
a blue shirt. That's what. So you distinguish
I
where
had
school
to
was.
teach regular curriculum.
And typically, the ones that got a break and stuff like that, so their work is, those, of course, have to be there before 7.
They walk into
And after roll call,
and on the whiteboard,
they jog
a
for
problem.
about half an
They
hour.
put
They jog,
carry on
they run, they exercise
undergoes
for about, they run maybe like a mile,
I
mile and a
didn't put
half.
photosynthesis, I just put
And then they
CC
do
plus,
sit
the
ups,
whole
push
thing.
ups,
Yeah.
they exercise,
What kingdoms it belongs to.
then they go to the,
Exactly.
And so
yeah, and then
they
they
were
go to
freaking out. Like, no idea what's going to be next. And then I'm like, okay, sure.
and then do strikes, and then add another, maybe, typically they're there for 30 days. The tap side, they're there for, probate, and they miss up there, and another 30 days.
But it's like, it was so
And
funny, man.
and a lot of kids, a lot of kids really don't want
You start telling someone, like for instance,
you know, a lot of kids don't want
like, did you know that hydrocarbons, what was it? Hydrogen monoxide is all over the place? You breathe it in every day.
I was there early in the morning. I was there like maybe 5:45.
It slowly, it died hydrogen monoxide. Did you know it's slowly killing you right
But
now?
every day, when you do pack downs, when you search, there's always somebody trying to smuggle in.
Exactly. And it's because people don't, like you said, well, exactly, and then you put it in a lethal context. It's like, for instance, the hydrogen monoxide is used to kill insects, yet it's found in your child's water, or in the bottle. Exactly. You use it in a lethal context, but I mean, it's just water.
Oh yeah,
But-
definitely.
The teacher will catch them,
That's really funny.
setting them, or
Sir, I have a question. I know I go to procedures and stuff, but you, in your opinion, what kind of policy would you prepare? So aside from the school having their policy, as soon as they enter your
that's
classroom,
because from there,
The rule of thumb is, first of all, cell phones are allowed in certain districts. Instructional. If the teacher says, okay, you've got a cell phone, take it out, turn it on, you answer questions.
So, yeah, so
Yeah, you wanna start with the policy of the district, which then you wanna check with your school, because some schools will say,
do some homework.
we know you have it.
Everything's
Turn it off.
like that.
And
And
put it
then by
away.
8 o'clock, they're,
It's simple as that, turn it on and put it
I
away.
think like 7 or 8 o'clock.
We see it, we're gonna take it away.
That's it.
Simple as that. But see,
But the only thing with
as
DCNC
new
is,
teachers, many times you get
Uh,
excited,
either
like, I wanna
state
try this, I
paper
wanna try, and you just be
or
honest with the students, say, okay guys,
so a lot of
you know
times
the
if
rules,
they,
that
if
you're not supposed to
they
take out your phones and be
by
using them
school,
during school time, you know
you know,
that.
they have to
But
have
for instructional purposes, I will
long
tell you, at
history,
this time,
long,
if you have a cell phone, take
you
it
know,
out, because we're gonna use it for this.
because
So in other words, you would have to set up a procedure, let them know, we may use it at this point. Okay.
that means
Be
that
clear, and let them know that once they're done with that activity, again, this time, shut off your phones, put them away. That way, at least you've established a procedure. And you might even have to do a poster, you know, for Kahoot, you know, turn on your phone, use your phone, answer it, okay? And then, to wrap it up, turn it off, put it away. And that way there's something that they can't.
Yeah,
as
we-
a
we-
administrator, if I
yeah,
see that you're using it instructionally, hey, wonderful. I will tell you, there's some
So, yeah,
and they're not comfortable with technology.
Yeah.
So they might able
process.
to.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And juvenile
They use
law
phones.
is,
It happens.
pretty
You have
neat.
administrators that will like,
Yeah.
why are you using them to use
I
the
just
phones?
catch a lot of kids with marijuana.
And that's when you, ideally also, you wanna explain to the
a lot of
administrator,
percent.
hey, sir, just FYI,
So,
you
you
know,
know,
a couple of days, I'm gonna
you
have
have to
the
call them
children
first.
use their phones
And let them know,
instructionally.
hey, I got this
So that they
kid.
can answer questions that
And,
are developed
they're
on
less.
the system.
What do you wanna do?
And that way, if they happen to walk
So,
in,
you know,
they know instructions.
Take them over there
Okay.
and have
You
them
know,
locked
just be
up.
clear. And
Break this
also
over,
Mr.
prep the students.
Send them to-
Break this all?
send them
Okay,
home 3
prep the
days.
students, yeah.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
what time is it?
Okay, we're back. Laredo, welcome back.
Yo, you listen to the camera.
We wanted to continue with, well, first of all, before I go into emergency procedures, because I'll share some anecdotes on that one. Any questions so far? And I know you had a good question about the cell phone use, procedures for cell phones. I've dealt with cell phones in different aspects. Some schools, it was straight out, turn it off, put it away. Simple as that. Because if we see it, we're gonna take it from you, and then of course, mom or dad have to come and pick it up. Very straightforward. Okay.
Okay.
But we also have a BYOD policy, bring your own device for instructional purposes. So my advice, and I was sharing with the gentleman, is if you're gonna have an instructional activity involving cell phones or the iPad or whatever that the students bring on their own, then you establish a procedure for that. And tell them straight out, tomorrow we're going to use the cell phone. So if you have a cell phone, you're welcome to use it during that activity only. And then after the activity, you will turn it off and you will put it away. It's also a good idea to advise your administration that you're going to be using cell phones instructional. And always tie it into instruction, guys. Okay? As an administrator, I walked into rooms that cell phones were being used instructionally, and it was wonderful. And then I also walked into rooms that the cell phones were not being used instructionally, and it was very obvious. Okay? So that's when we have a problem. When they're just using them to Google this and YouTube that and Snapchat
Or
this.
I've heard of them taking pictures of tests.
Well, they are, they can take pictures of almost anything, Nowadays, you can take pictures, I take pictures of things, I see a cool decoration or this and that, and I text it to my sister, hey, what do you think about this? You can take a picture in seconds. STAR does not allow for any cell phones because of that camera. And those cameras are amazing for some of those phones. You can really zoom in and see the whole thing. So my advice to you, be very clear with the students what the expectation is. If they're going to be allowed to use the cell phones only during the instructional activity. In the case of art, you could have students take, what is it called, photography? That they take creative pictures with their phones and all that.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now because I'm in charge of the photography club at the elementary, and I myself am using a cell phone.
Yeah, but instructionally, and you can justify it, and that's a great activity right there.
I have a question. Let's say that, because they are using the phones a lot now in the class and they're allowing it.
Instructional.
Instructionally. So what happens if they get into something they're not supposed to? Who's liable? The school or?
And the students using within.
Yeah, because they know how to get around.
There's always firewalls, and the reason the district sets firewalls is so that it can catch or prevent the students from going into certain websites. But you can't totally control it. They're creative and they're sharp. They'll find ways.
So that's what I'm saying. Let's say they get into something they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And
there's honest mistakes also. There's honest mistakes. There's one of the classic mistakes in elementary was whitehouse.org versus whitehouse.gov.
Or .com.
Or .com, yeah. If you go to the GOV version, that's the actual White House, Mr. Trump. If you go to the other ones, it's not the White House. It's something else. It's an adult site. But the kids don't know that.
That's what I'm saying.
I didn't know that.
It's an honest mistake, You'd be amazed. You've had adults, teachers that mistakenly type in whitehouse.org
Oh my goodness.
or whitehouse.com because those are the most common ones. How many of you actually use .gov on a daily basis?
They won't let you.
No, we do everything .com
Firewall's
nowadays.
gotten a lot better since
Yeah.
probably when I've been.
Oh yeah, firewalls have
They have
gotten
their
a
own-
lot
So what if
better.
they can get in their own hot spots and stuff,
Well,
like that? Like, let's
well,
say
That's that.
something like
If they
that.
have-
It's on them.
Who would be
Well, let me
liable?
put it that way. If they're
If it's
investing
on-
that
yeah,
much
it's-
Well,
time,
it's still
it's on the kids.
inappropriate. It's still inappropriate.
Yes.
So you have every right to be like, you know what, just go to the office. Because
the
you're-
child is
why-
choosing to go there.
Yeah.
Okay, think about it this way. In the code of ethics session you all had, there's firewalls. As adults, we know that during work hours, you're not allowed to go into certain places. Period.
And
You're
that
working.
parent had already signed that their kid is going to follow the rules
Mhm.
prior
Code of
to even that happening.
Child
So
code of conduct.
the code of conduct.
Students.
So right there and there, you already
Yeah.
have like, okay, he chose to go into that site, so
So,
time to go.
the district sets rules And it's like society. The state and the government set speed limits, right? And if you speed, that's on you, because you know there's a speed limit there. You're the person driving. So in the school, you have rules, you have the firewall, you have the policy, the code of conduct, you have all of that. If the child still tries to get in there, it's on them. Okay, we cannot, Big Brother cannot watch 24/7. Okay, so yes, we try every effort, we make every effort to stop them, but if they're determined enough, they'll find a way. Of course, it's on them, and they'll get punished for it. You know, I mean, the campus can only do so much. You know, like, okay, we did the firewall, we taught the children etiquette, we had them sign the code of conduct, we went over the rules.
I'm actually surprised they even allow phones in the school. Like, I was surprised.
Well,
they
you can't
even
stop
allowed
it. I can't stop phones here.
Like VISD
You know?
was real strict on that. They caught you,
They've always have, but it's impossible to stop cell phones from being, airplanes couldn't stop Galaxy phones.
Prisons don't stop cell phones.
Prisons.
So let
I
alone
mean,
the school,
you
you know?
cannot
Yeah.
stop it. You can only try to control it, or at least,
Go
you
with
know,
the flow.
as much as possible, but it's too much. There's no way unless you literally frisk, and even then, you know, you can't stop it. Kids have little cell phones. I mean, some of those cell phones are amazing. They're super slim. You can't even tell. You know, and some kids have the jackets with the, you know, the
watch
watches
phone.
is now a cell phone. If you think about it,
Yeah.
there's certain watches that actually have their own phone line. I used to have a watch that didn't even need the phone near me. The watch had its own phone line. So, I mean, it's a normal looking watch, but I had a phone line, you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so guys, technology is beautiful, but it also, you know, it can get out of hand. The worst mistake you can make is think you can totally control it. There's no way to control technology completely. You know, that would be very, it would be pretty much ridiculous, okay? Because it just finds a way to get out there. But just keep in mind that you set procedures in your classroom and you have that expectation. And the more you enforce the procedure, the better it'll be for you. Now, if they decide to go against your procedure, it's on them. You've already established it, you shared it with the parents, you open house, you talked about it, you sent the rules home, you have the rules posted right there, you have your procedures in place, okay? Yes, sir.
Cool question. Is it frowned upon to like have the mentality as a teacher to be like getting them ready for college expectation? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if anyone's been at a
Depends
at
on
a
the
college
actual
class.
expectation.
like in college. I know like you couldn't walk in late. The professor would be like, just go back to your room and go to sleep. He would say that. You know what I mean? Like, is that frowned upon, or is it
It's-
like not?
With like a tardy policy?
Well, I mean, you're not gonna kick out a kid and tell him to go back home,
Well, not
but
always,
you'll have a discussion with them, and that way you can hopefully stop that. You know what's going on. You know, you've come three times late this week, you know, and you're missing out on instruction. Notice that I always tie it back to instruction. You know, that way they can't say, well, he doesn't like me. No, I'm telling you, you're missing out on instruction. You being late. I had a parent that the child was out 26 days and tardied 16 days. And the tardies, the mother said, well, we were in the parking lot. And I go, yeah, but he was missing out on instruction. 26 days. That's a whole month and a half. The child lost out on instruction, you know. But the mother swears that the teacher didn't like him. And I'm like, no, he failed because he missed out on a month and a half. It's good to prep them for college and remind them, but you know, ultimately you're still responsible for making sure they receive the instruction. And if they arrive late, that's when you have to address it. You have to address it with them and say, what's going on? Is there a reason why you're late? And there are instances that the child will just say, well, I was talking to my buddies or my girlfriend or whatever, you know.
Okay, another scenario. What if it's a student that just sees the class as a joke? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just consistently every day is like, I'm not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
Or he's just gonna turn in whatever. While other students, like my expectation is like, I can tell if it's a minute drawing or someone that actually sat there and
Yeah, you're gonna have some of those. And you know, I always feel like there's something behind it. Why do they see the class as a joke in the first place? And there are some, they just don't care for the class. They don't care for it. They're there because they wanted to get out of PE or something, or they needed something, an elective. My only response to that is, you know, as a teacher, you also want to make things relevant to the kids. Not that they're gonna use it. I mean, how many of us are artists? But how you present it, you know, how appealing you make your class makes a difference, you know. It's good to also reflect and say, okay, am I not making it interesting, or what's going on, you know? Am I not, you know, could a factor be me also? Think about it that way. They're young kids, they don't know any better. So if they're not interested, then how can we get them interested? And some of these kids have other things in their life that take priority.
It's more.
Oh yeah, they you don't know what they're going on. I had a student that was arriving late every day, and the teacher's like, "Why are you arriving late? What's going on?" And she didn't want to say anything. Well, the mom would wake up late every day, and the child was waiting on the mother to get dressed. And the child has to face the teacher every day because she's late. And the mother was the one that was making her late. Finally the child opened up, and, we brought in the parent, and we had the discussion, and, there were factors in play. There were other factors. But, it got better when it was addressed, but the child had to, face the teacher every morning, late. And it wasn't even her fault. So that's gonna happen too, guys. The more you get to know your students, the better you'll understand them. I always say that, you see a child, look at the parents. And sometimes it's a wonderful thing, they mirror their parents, good kids, good parents. Sometimes, the parents can be the problem too. Some of these parents are scary, like, oh God, okay, I now know what you go to every night. And some of these kids deal with so much stuff at home. It's very saddening, And I'll go over a variety of examples in the classroom management section. Procedures, guys. I need to go into procedures. You're gonna be dealing with emergency procedures. Some of you will be involved in lockdowns. Some of you will be teaching, and all of a sudden, code red or code blue, or what is it? Reversed, evacuate, I don't know. They call them different things. And one of those, I remember being a teacher, and I was like, okay, am I supposed to leave? Am I supposed to stay? Because I couldn't remember if the code meant leave or stay in place. So my recommendation, if they give you a folder with the codes, try to remember them or post it on the wall or something, because you may be involved in a situation. Some of you asked about Cummings. You didn't know Cummings had been dismantled. Remember what happened at Cummings? Scary stuff.
Is
But
that the reason they dismantled it? Because of what happened? No.
factor was decided when
Well, it was a factor, but I mean, the enrollment was going down, it was landlocked. I mean, there's different factors, but I mean,
I was involved in two. One was a drunk parent,
drunk parent.
like showing up to the school like all rowdy, and then the other one was a guy walking with a machete outside the school campus.
Oh, was he doing
Yeah, he
some
was
lawn
wielding
work?
it, yeah. No, he was just wielding it, like walking around, like.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
You never know who's gonna show up, folks. My
Yeah.
first principal that hired me as an administrator, he told me, Ms. Rivera, can you go to the window, because this gentleman wants to check out the little girl, but I need you to go and take a whiff. I think he smells like marijuana. Can you go confirm? And I looked at my boss and I said, what does marijuana smell like? I'm 35 years old, and I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't realize it was common knowledge to know what marijuana smells like, guys.
Oh wow.
But seriously, my boss said, go smell him. And I'm like, sir, I don't know what marijuana smells like. So how am I supposed to confirm? So you see,
I smell something.
I smell something, and it's not Old Spice, I don't know what that is, but seriously, you're gonna have situations like that. You don't know who's walking into your campus. A guy with a jacket and a tie shows up. You'd be amazed how many campuses I walk into and I don't get asked anything. You know, and I remember a few days ago they saw me, and this teacher, where's your tag? Hello, sir, where's your tag? Oh, they didn't give me one. Oh, okay. And I just kept on walking. You know, so they're supposed to stop. They're you know, they're supposed. Yeah, a guy with a jacket, a guy with a tie.
Just
You know,
because you dress nicely.
just because you dress up a little bit, you know, and you know, and yet I've had parents that show up in different attire, and I mean, we had a goth parent in one of the, you know, nicest guy, great parent, but that's what he was into, you know, but you know, appearances, you know.
And I pick up my daughter, there's a guy that picks up his son. He's got a full mohawk.
Full mohawk, not just half
Real
mohawk,
skinny
full
dude,
mohawk.
just full mohawk. and
Yeah.
tatted up.
Man, I've always wanted to go.
And he picks up his child from school, you know. It is what it is, you never know. But schools have their cameras, schools have their gated, you know, the gate and all that. But you never know who's gonna walk in. And that's why emergency procedures, every campus has them. So you have to, you know, do you need to shut down your lights? Do you need to lock the door? Do you need to huddle in the corner? You never know.
Those lockdown procedures.
Lockdown procedures. I was in a campus doing a presentation and I got locked in for 3 hours because something was going on in the neighborhood, not inside the school, but in the neighborhood, and they did a lockdown and I'm there for 3 hours. Okay, with a group of teachers, just you know, in the corner, lights off, the whole thing.
I had to lock the kids in 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4 doors. So
4
there was
doors.
4.
Wow.
You had to go through 4 doors before
Yeah.
you, like, whatever.
Wow, that's safer than just one.
Yeah.
You know, usually we just do one, and you know. And then of course the kids in the restroom. What happens when your kids in the restroom? You'll always get these procedures at the campus. You'll get the breakdown. Okay, let's, you know, grab a kid and get in there. Like, well, you know, so what if the teacher's looking for the kid? They're not accounted for. So, you know, things like that. But you always think student safety. That's really what it comes down to. And of course your own. Okay, be mindful of that. But you'll receive a handbook with your procedures from the district. Your AP will go into those fire drills, practice fire drills.
Fire drills.
Okay, evacuations. Evacuations are great sometimes because they train you on how to get out quickly. I remember we had one campus that had a habit that they would forget to do their practice fire drills, and they would do it on a Friday at 4 o'clock. Like, okay, well, you're already outside, get in the buses. Bye-bye. We'll see you Monday. So that was an interesting one. Yeah. Yeah.
That's messed up.
Okay, these are the pictures I wanted to share with you. These are actually, it's a classroom, and I'm very happy with it. Yes, they're all lined up, but notice a lot of color coding, the numbering, these are the class periods. So this teacher has made it a point to organize and display student work, display grammar rules, punctuation rules, and sort out the baskets. Now, I don't know if the teacher bought them or if the school bought them, but this teacher there's a lot of structure there. The kids get used to it, okay? And I was visiting, this was open house. These are the journals. You know, I'm not saying they're super lined up, but at least, yeah, hey, first period, second period, third period, at least the kids know where things belong, okay? And when they finish working on their journals, you know, the materials, the baskets for the materials. These things are like $1 at the dollar store, okay? They come in handy. I like those a lot. These are just more samples of, you know, how the teacher sorted things out. Now, this is obviously a very structured person to begin with, you know, student homework. And you can make a variation of that. It doesn't have to be colorful. I'm not the most colorful person. I'm not. That's not my, I'm not, you know, I don't do Martha Stewart stuff. That's not me. But I can have a basket. Hey, put your homework in the basket. Simple as that. Yes, ma'am.
Does the district provide all these materials?
The district provides different things. It also depends how good you are about asking. Okay, they're not going to give you everything. I've rarely seen that. But as a new teacher, you get to inherit things, and you get to. And if you have a nice administration, they'll say, okay, you got $200. Go to Office Depot and get some stuff, or order something, and you need to move on it. You know, because it is a process. It's a purchasing process. Some things you'll have to borrow, steal, and sometimes buy. Well, what happens is if you find out that the other teacher's leaving or something happens, You know, like, hey, I like that filing cabinet, you know. Things happen, you know. Or somebody might give you, hey, I don't need this chair anymore. You wanna have it? Sure, I'll take it. So there's always, things get recycled a lot. And as a teacher, like, hey, I can use that. The last thing you wanna become, folks, don't become a hoarder. Because there are teachers that are famous for hoarding too much stuff, way too much stuff. We had a teacher on a growth plan because she would keep everything, and it would get out of hand. Okay, so you always want to keep. It's good to keep things, clean, but also keep what you need. You don't have to keep every single piece of paper. And nowadays, everything's digital, guys. You know, our filing cabinets for our district, and I'm sure for others, it's all digital. It's all cloud based. You can scan your PDFs. You can house your PDFs on OneDrive, on Google, on Dropbox, on Box, any one of those. Okay, so there's a lot of resources. Okay. Notice this is activities that you can be using while you're teaching. Visuals. Kids love visuals, folks. Use as many as you can. Graphic organizers. You know, get them used to it. And you can use them as little activities when the students are waiting for you. Things that you can get them used to, word templates, today's number, and some of these are lower level, but at least they'll get used to it. They could have this waiting for them in a basket as soon as they walk into the classroom. Okay. You're the one that ends the class, and get them used to that. Because otherwise, as soon as the bell rings, they start standing up, and you're wrapping up, and you're still talking, and they're already exiting, and you're still talking. You want to be careful with that. Don't get them used to that. It's like, the bell rings. Okay, one final thought. We covered this and this and this. Thank you very much. Have a great day, guys. I witnessed the principal do that to the faculty. We were having a training, and the bell rang, and the faculty needed to run. They needed to go too, because they needed to go get the kids. And the teacher, the principal handled it in a very interesting way. She's like, okay, hold on. Just like with the students, I just need to tell you one final thought. Thank you very much. You all did a great job. Have a great day. And then they walked out. So she was modeling the behavior that she's expecting the teachers to do with the students. And that was the principal with adults. Okay? So what I'm going to do now, I wanted you to go over this paper. The one that reads Routines and Transitions, okay? And what I wanted you to do, since we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 people, and we happen to have 9 questions that you're going to be asking yourself, okay? So in this handout, you have how will students respond in class, what are the seating arrangements, how will students enter and exit the classroom, how will tardiness and absences be handled, how much can students interact with each other, how will homework be handled, how will missed work or makeup work be handled, what will happen when a rule is violated, and how will classroom visitors be handled. So what I want you to do is, I numbered them 1 through 9, okay? So I was gonna number you all off, or do you have a preference as to which ones you wanna do? Either way, each one, since it's 9 of you, Laredo, you get to choose one, okay? And pretty much, you're gonna jot down your thoughts about that specific question or topic, jot them down on the poster in front of you, and then you're gonna share them with us, okay? That way it's a sharing session, okay? So we can start from this side, work our way, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay? Each one of you gets one. If you need a paper, well, there's more over here for you guys. We'll get you one right now. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is read the question, and just based on the presentation you've seen, that you saw at home also, and that I'd be reviewing the discussion, jot down some ideas of how you would handle that question. There's no real wrong answer, guys. I want you to share, and based on your experience, having been a student, having been some of your parents, discussion, how would you address that? And we'll discuss it, because I want you to hear the variety of answers that are out there, okay? Laredo, obviously you would have to choose one. If you're at home, choose one and jot down your thoughts, and you're welcome to share them over here, okay? This activity will take about, maybe 5 minutes, just for you to jot down a few, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want you to share your thoughts. Gentlemen, if you want to grab those 2, Everybody has a paper. Okay, this one's for you, ma'am. You can use this one. And ma'am, you can use this one. And we'll get you one over here. So we're gonna set up a counter and just look at the question you got and how would you answer it or how would you address it? What thoughts do you have on that topic, okay?
I do the homework one, you do the.
And I'm gonna set the timer for 5 minutes. You can list them, list your thoughts. How would you handle that question? And you can handle it in 2, 3 ways, 4 ways, whatever you feel would, be appropriate. And if you have questions, as a group, we'll address them. We're gonna discuss it, okay? But I am going to want you to share up here because I want you to get comfortable being up here, okay? It's gonna be done for the rest of your life, so you might as well get used to it. That's gonna be the job.
Sorry. I have a sore jar.
Are we answering just that one or two?
Yeah, so the number you
The
got.
one that you gave us and then another one that we want?
Yeah, well, if you wanna answer another one also, that'd be great, because we're gonna discuss all of them.
Paper.
Just remember what number you got, and then jot down your thoughts about how you would handle that. And I'll start the timer when everybody's ready, that way I'll give you enough time. Laredo, you have this in your Padlet. This is our routines and transitions right there. So choose one in your home. Choose one and see which one you would like to address, and just share your thoughts. Feel free to send them through the chat. Mr. John will share them with us.
Is it right the steps?
Go for it. Yeah. You can be as creative as you want. Some of you will do text. Some of you might do visuals. Let's see how you want to approach it.
Sir, for visitors, is that like administration doing walk-ins or like there's an intern?
Well, that's a good question, because it could be a visitor to your classroom. It could be a visitor to the school. So you might want to jot down visiting classroom. How would you want your students to react when a visitor comes? What would you expect? Think of it that way. And we'll elaborate when we go up there. But for starters, somebody walks into your classroom. How do you want your students to react? What's your expectation?
Oh, okay.
Okay, think of it that way. So just to recap, Laredo, choose one of the questions from 1 through 9. Choose the one that you'd like to address and answer it what would be your expectation in the classroom, okay? For example, and I was sharing this with a gentleman, his question was, how will classroom visitors be handled? In other words, if your classroom gets visited, what would be your expectation of the students? How would you expect them to behave? And how would you set that up? Because it will happen. You will have interruptions in your classroom. So now's the time to think about those things.
What's this about to do?
We'll start wrapping it up. I notice everybody's focused, so I'll be a little bit more time. And does Laredo share pictures, or how do we see their? They type it in. Okay, about 40 seconds left, so we can start having people come up here and share their thoughts.
Quick question, sir.
Yes. Are you
Wasn't like he touches
You know,
my yard.
I saw this even said that you went to the Russian gun. You went to the Russian gun where ours is.
Yeah, because I was
I was like, that's cold blooded, bro.
That's how I was able to
That's cold blooded.
I wasn't too happy with it, that's why I left it. Specifically this.
There was one with a picture of Tom Brady, and it said Tom Brady had more rushing yards than Ezekiel Elliott, and he's on the bench like this. Because he had like 9 yards, I think, Tom Brady. And Zeke ended up with like a total of 8, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm like, wow, that's embarrassing.
I would definitely get.
In college, I was like, man, I guess. And then.
As soon as they notice that you and then they see you.
That guy, yeah, man. I'm so mad at that guy.
Marshawn Lynch?
Yeah, maybe you can start.
He's my running back, but I didn't see the game.
To be fair,
I don't
the other
think
reason
good.
I want the idea is just because.
So the reason why we say that, dude, is because all of last season, he could have come back to the Seahawks if he wanted to.
But he did.
He sat out the whole year, dude, and he was wearing Seahawks stuff.
That's why.
And he would go to the games.
Wow.
Right? So we're like, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
he's
like.
going back next year, you know? So I'm like, putting my jersey, I'm like, getting ready, you know?
So I'm thinking of doing that.
Did it?
So you will
The money wasn't there, man.
Might as well because.
My opponent, die-hard Cowboys, real hardcore Cowboys.
You'll try out different.
But he had two Broncos players. He had
But you'll become known.
Sanders
You know,
and he's a running back.
Oh, Anderson?
Out of mind,
Yeah.
out of sight, out of mind. You know, so
Age-
think of it that way.
age
You
had a
gotta,
couple
you gotta be visible. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So I gave you a couple extra minutes just to be on the safe side, and I did. The whole point was that you would read the question as to how you would approach the procedure, and share your thoughts. We're going to be asking you to share, And that way, one of the things that I like to do is, I want you to all use your teacher voice. And don't be afraid, please don't do this, because I've had cohorts, everybody loves, they don't mind writing, but as soon as they're up here, they're like this. Okay, this is what I want to show. No. Don't cover it up. This is your career, so you might as well get used to it. Yes, the kids are going to be watching you, adults are going to be watching you. Get comfortable with it. Embrace it, okay? The best way you can handle it is by knowing what you're talking about. That's the best thing you can do, okay? Especially when it comes to content. You all know the content. You know what you're talking about. I'm not a math person. I wouldn't be questioning you in math or health or criminal justice. I wouldn't question you, but I would be curious how you handle the class and how the class is under control, but I wouldn't question your content knowledge. I'll never question your art knowledge. You're the expert there. Now, obviously, I would question the classroom management, like, okay, what's going on? But if you've got the content down and you've got the students engaged, that really minimizes disruptions and classroom management issues. So we started numbering from the left side. We're going to start presenting from the right side. Okay, totally unexpected. Totally unexpected. Please introduce yourself. Laredo may not know you. They've seen me, but they haven't seen you. You've got about 15 people in Laredo just watching. Okay.
Hello, Laredo. My name's Randy. Here in the Brownsville office. Just kidding. Okay. I was presenting how will you handle visitors when they visit the classroom. Okay. The first thing you want to know is you want them to minimize distraction in the classroom. Okay. And in order to do that, whenever somebody arrives late or a visitor, the kids are gonna turn. They're gonna look. It's curiosity. It's human nature. Okay. The main thing you want to do is keep them focused on instruction. You want to minimize that. So if you're expecting a visitor, as soon as they walk in, you want to acknowledge it. This is so and so, blah blah. Get it over with. Focus back on instruction, so you can maximize time on task. Introduce them, yes, and then have the students remain calm and be professional about it. Okay, you don't want them to be turning around. Hey, did you see that guy walk in? Who's this? And you don't want none of that because they're not focusing on what's going on here or over there. Okay, and and the last thing I wanted to talk about was the tone is set in the first days of class. Okay, if you're gonna be a lax teacher, they're gonna be lax in your class. That's just the reality. Okay. So you want to get them on the ball right away, get them going, this, and this. And we are going to have visitors from time to time. You're going to get, especially through your probationary period, you're going to get visitors in there and they're going to want to know what's going on. Just tell them, hey, straight up, this is going to happen, and get it over with so they can get focused back on instruction.
And I'm glad you bring that up. He brought up the probationary period. Well, when you're your new teacher, you're going to get visited and observed a lot more than an experienced teacher who's already, been doing it for a while. So you need to get comfortable with that too. If you're teaching and an appraiser, an assistant principal, the dean of instruction, or even the principal arrives, you need to keep on teaching. Maybe, acknowledge them quickly, but a lot of times they're doing walkthroughs. So you need to also remind the students, if you see someone, remember, instruction is supposed to be happening. Now, if it happens to be a visitor from the outside, they might have a question or something. It's always good to remind the students. Don't get all excited. Introduce the person. But yes, you will be getting a lot of walkthroughs as new teachers and you'll be having your formal visits once in the first semester, once in the second semester, because they want to see your teaching style. So do expect a lot more walkthroughs than your experienced colleagues, okay? So it's good to get used to that, guys. Once you're used to it, it's no big deal because you're teaching, the kids are learning. Whoever walks into the classroom, that's all they're gonna see. I had a principal that said, I'm gonna look through the window. If I have to walk in, it's because I have no idea what you're doing. I should be able to tell from the window, outside, I should be able to tell that you're teaching. That was his style, Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you. Good teacher voice, guys. It's always good to get comfortable with your teacher voice. Okay, you should introduce yourself to Laredo.
Hi guys, I'm Josh. My question was, what will happen when a rule is violated? Now, mind you, the steps that I wrote here are for if rules are violated, not procedures. So this is only specific to when a rule is violated, whether it be respecting another student or talking during class when you're not supposed to, or interrupting someone, something like that. For these, the first offense would be just a simple verbal warning. It could be a verbal warning, could be a non-verbal warning, a simple, like that, hand gesture, whatever it may be. For the second offense, now my content is multiplication, it's math, so I decided to put multiplication facts. It could be something else, it could be disciplinary sentences, I will not do this, or whatever you guys decide you can do. The third offense would be a lunch or after school detention. Now the reason I put lunch or after school is there's obviously some students that they're going to have issues with the fact that they're staying after school. Maybe they don't have a ride for someone to come and pick them up. That's why they can do it during lunch. And that's something that you would have to contact the parents, find out, is someone going to be able to come and pick up the student, or am I going to have to keep them during lunch? That way, that there's not that inconvenience for the parents. Maybe they work late, whatever it may be. We don't want the student to stay there until like 8, 9, 10 at night. And finally, the fourth offense, if they continue to do it and they're persistent about it, that's when you have an office referral. That's when you realize that the student is completely not on task. They decide, I don't want to be a part of this. They're going to keep on doing what they're doing, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's when you send them to the office, and you can have a parent-teacher conference as well to see what you can do in order to make sure that the student is going to be on task, or maybe there's something else you can work out to help out the students.
Okay, and I'm glad you pointed out procedures versus rules, because procedures, there really should be punishment or rewards for procedures, because that's the whole point. The rules are the ones that can be broken. I do want to point out, you do want to explain to the children that the multiplication is not being a punishment, because then they might perceive it as, well, I'm supposed to learn this, multiplication facts should be something that they, I don't want to say enjoy, but it's a lifelong, skill. So, you want to be careful about turning it into something negative that they'll perceive as a punishment. Many times we have the sing-along multiplication tables. It's fun. They have the worksheets with 4 boxes of multiplication tables. So that's the only thing I would be careful with.
Okay.
But I know you're a math person, so you're always thinking mathematics, and the more practice they have in mathematics,
exactly. And I know sometimes this is like specific content towards like the middle school kids, and I know most of them by now should know their multiplication tables.
Should.
That doesn't mean they know it though. So that it gives them extra practice, and at the same time, they see that he's serious about this. Maybe I should just stop right where I'm at.
That's a good spin. Extra practice for the multiplication facts. Thank you. Okay, thank you guys. Okay, mathematics also, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I notice the font is getting smaller, so be careful with that. Okay. Laredo zooms in. You can zoom in?
Hello, Laredo, I'm Eric. And this is a system that my favorite math teacher used to use with me. So my bullet point was, how would missed work and makeup work be handled? And the way my teacher did it was, he would assign work, and I'm sure you've all had math classes where the problems are listed and the easy ones are first, and they get harder as you go down, down, down. So what he would do is he would assign like the first few 10 or so. That was the normal homework for everybody. But if you missed it, then he would add 5 more. So it'd be like, it would be like a psychological thing, like, oh, I don't want to miss work because then I make it harder on myself. And obviously you still have to get graded. So then there's that on top of that. But the submission would keep going. So the first people will get hundreds if they could get it. Then the second late submission will go down to 75, and then 70, and then 0, since there's too many late submissions.
Or no submission.
Or no submissions, yes. And the reason I really like this system is because it places the responsibility on the student to finish the work, and not so much I guess it is a chore in their eyes, but it's still like, it's my work, and if I don't finish it, I get more of it. And can't remember what else I wrote. Oh, yes, so he made it kind of an honor system. He's like, this is a privilege for you guys. I don't have to take your late work. And so if you keep doing it, if you keep abusing the system, like, oh, I don't really care about my grades, I'm just going to go for 70s, then he just revoked the privilege and no late submissions for you in particular.
So he let you know from the get-go
Yes.
the way
He
it
would
was gonna
establish the
work
rules, yes.
and establish the rules. So
Mhm.
everybody knew what was going on.
Yes. And it was an honor system, so it was all on the students.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very fair system, and I really liked it.
Wow, and it's obviously memorable because you still remember it, and you know, sounds like something that you might even consider applying to your classroom
Yes, sir.
when the time comes. Wow. And we all remember different things that our teachers did that we liked and we respected because it was fair. You know, it was fair to everyone. I think you pointed out also that it made every child accountable for their own performance. You know, like I told you all earlier, the rules are there, and some students, if they knowingly violate the rule, it's on them. The school district, the school, the teacher, you establish the procedures and the rules, but if they do something wrong knowingly, you know, that's really on the children. I've had different situations like that where students like I didn't know, like really you didn't know code of conduct, the rules on the wall, you know, the little marijuana packet was, you know, they told you to hold it, really? You held it? But it's gonna happen, folks. So I'm glad those procedures are very memorable to you because it's something that you can carry into your classroom. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Sir?
Hello, I'm Ray, and I had how will you handle how will homework be handled? And something pretty basic, I guess. I came up with I guess have a little basket on your desk, and as you come in, you know, put your homework there. You know, presentations or essays. Another thing is maybe put like a one of those plastic baskets that go on the wall, and just put the homework in there as you come in. Or we can even go with electronically, email it, you know, especially like if the school is working on iPads and stuff like that, you can just email it. Or
I think you all submit electronically also, don't you? Certain assignments?
Yes.
yes,
You upload them, PDF.
upload on PDF, yeah, stuff like that.
It's all
That's
accessible.
another one. And then verbal, like in a presentation, you know, the homework assignment come up and present it, like you know, like we do here. And the last one, what is that? Using the drawing board. Like instead of turning in paper, you know, give you an assignment, you can just go up in the board and then do your homework assignment that you were assigned. Just do it on the board for everybody to present.
The different ways of submitting, digitally, on paper, presentation-wise.
Presentation-wise.
So, homework is always an issue because there are students that are gonna do the homework no matter what because they're good. And, you know, it's due Friday, they do it by Wednesday. And you're going to have students that, you know, have struggled with homework, you know, and that's a good time to find out why they're struggling. Do they not understand? Do they not have the time? Do the parents not give them the opportunity? I mean, I don't know if you all heard about that. There was a gentleman and a couple that would lock up the little girl in the closet, and she had to do the homework in the closet. This was years ago.
Oh, wow.
It came in on the news that they would
You
lock
talked
her
about
up.
the last time you were here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
I knew that guy. I actually got to meet him, you know, before that incident. Normal looking guy, you know, all of a sudden he's in the news locking up kids, you know, locking up his child, you know, allegedly, of course, innocent until proven guilty. But you never know about homework, guys. So establishing options. Some kids might say, you know what, I'll email it to you, or you know, I'll put it in Edmodo, I'll put it in Dropbox for you, wherever you want it. They'll send it. Others might say, you know, they have to write everything. They want to turn it in. They want their basket. Especially in the lower grades, the kids get so used to their baskets, to their little wall. I guess a wall basket too. Whatever you get them used to, that's what they're gonna respond. But you have to monitor it, because when you stop monitoring it, they stop doing it. Okay, that's what happens. Thank you, sir. Amen. Well, is this elementary?
No.
Well, I asked because of the little dots on the letters. Did you notice? That's elementary mode right there.
Like the wood things right outside the classroom.
Yeah, that's great, that's great. Go
I
ahead.
like to write.
There you go, there you go.
Yes, my name's Mireya, and my question is how much can students interact with each other? And I came up with, students will be allowed to interact when they are placed in pairs or in groups, and when they're discussing over the lesson or the topic being taught that day. Another thing will be when all students have finished their assignments, they can talk quietly, but also discussing over the topic or the assignment for that. And I will be monitoring up and down the rows to make sure that they are not getting, that they're talking about that topic that day.
And she pointed something out, when they're in pairs or when they're working instructionally, discussing, you know, and you pointed out that you'd be monitoring the discussion.
Yes.
Because it's so easy for people. We're social creatures, guys. As soon as I say discussing at your table, you're going to discuss a little bit, but some chances are you might, you know, start deviating from the topic. So it's good that you monitor, you know, walk around, make sure they're discussing, and ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and be like, oh, tell me about that. And have the children, you know, share their thoughts. So as a teacher, you want them to be talking. Of course, it's a controlled environment. But you do want them to share their thoughts. And depending on the grade level, as you get older students, they share their thoughts a lot more. So it's always interesting to have discussions and have their feedback and input. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Mireya.
What's up, Laredo?
Okay.
I was talking about the tardiness and absences and what to do and absences. I talked about, like, I know for like the first day of class, I don't want to miss out on instructions. So the less I want to worry about tardiness or absences, the better. So I figured maybe I would have the students be able to have 3 tardiness and then eventually go on to, that's what I put right there, 3 times then a parent conference to see why that child is late. Because the last thing I want to do is worrying about tardiness of every student in the class. Because I want to be able to tell, like for instance for me is art, be able to teach art. I want to be able to let my students know that every minute lost is a chance to better yourself or have a chance to do something other than, you know, getting a scholarship for football or academics. They can have a scholarship to go to art. So I want to really emphasize that by any minute missed, then that's a way of missing out on something greater in the future, right? I also put like tardiness slips would be also associated with the attendance slip. So hopefully I'm in a school where they pick it up outside of my classroom instead of me having to walk to the main office.
And everything's digital nowadays.
Yeah.
You do it online.
And I was also thinking about also maybe like when absent, I'm sorry. Okay, like having like a graph seating chart, like making something up on my own. So that way, every period is gonna be visually, so I can just automatically see, okay, well, Rudy's not there, so I'm just gonna mark him absent. So that's gonna be, you know, a way for me to track it visually, you know, other than doing like what most people, I guess, would do in the class. And I also wanted to talk about like when a student responds, like maybe doing like I've seen like this works other than raising your hand, is like being able to pick random like slip strips or something like that, and then have someone randomly answer it instead of just having people raise their hands, because then you be able to understand if they're paying attention or not paying attention. So.
And I'm glad you pointed out absences because, thank you very much. I'm glad you pointed out absences because now the way it's system set up, everything's digital, so you mark attendance and you mark absences. And my understanding is parents, if there's an absence marked, the system will actually start dialing or send the parents a message or a text. Your child did not report to third period. You know, it's getting that sophisticated. So, you know, mom or dad gets a text message, hey, Carlitos didn't show up to third period, what's going on? It happens, guys.
Well, I guess at my school, at the school I'm at, they do it physically. I don't.
Yeah.
They have the
different
physical,
schools.
so that's why I was like thinking
Different
like,
schools,
I'm
you
gonna do
know,
it like that, like have it
there's-
visually charted where,
Mhm.
like first day of class, I have my students seat wherever they want to seat, and from there I do the chart.
Yep.
I already have
So an empty
pre-designed my
seat.
room already,
Yeah.
and I already have the seats already drawn out on this chart. So I just boom, put the name. So every day when they're coming in, I'm like,
An empty seat will mean an absent
Absent.
student, you know, very quickly. Instead of, nowadays, you don't really call out the name, Mr. Carlos, here, you don't do that anymore. You know, that's really old school. Nowadays, you're pretty much, okay, you can tell very quickly that absent seat, well, I know that so-so sits there, he must be out, because there's no way he would sit in another chair.
and that's more time in instruction.
There you go.
They
And
give the students numbers also.
numbering the students really helps. That's what I used to do. I would number the students. The day I was having my wisdom teeth removed, they asked me, the surgeon asked me, so what do you do? I'm a teacher. Do you know your students' names? Yeah. So I started giving him my students one, two, three by name, because you memorize them. You know, obviously it was in elementary. You know, I would, you know, in secondary it's harder. But you keep that system in place, and you number them. What throws you off is when you have a new arrival and all of a sudden they're out of alphabetical order. So it kind of throws you off. But you develop your own system for your own sanity, you know. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, mathematics, right?
Yes.
Okay. Laredo, feel free to share, by the way. John is just anxiously waiting for some feedback.
This is a shortened version, this is a longer version.
Double-sided?
But let's do the simpler version. Intention is to teach mathematics in the high school level, so I do expect a certain level of maturity. As I've done observations, I've seen multiple classrooms where they have a good process, and others where pretty much every single student went to the restroom during that class, 90-minute class time, or it seemed that way. It seemed like somebody was always leaving the class. So as far as my procedure, there's something I just picked up today. The first step is raise your hand with fingers crossed. The whole point to that is basically minimize disruption to instruction. Let's say I'm explaining something, we're covering something that's new to students, and we're in a group, we're in a flow, right? I'm discussing derivatives and whatnot, and someone raises a question, you think, oh, it's a question about derivatives. No, it's, can I go to the restroom?
Yeah.
So you're pausing that. It might be a few seconds, but you're also interrupting the flow. If it's already known, you're just doing this, wait for the acknowledgement, nod, the student gets up, it doesn't interrupt the instruction at all. So similar to tardies or visitors, just minimizing that interruption. Student gets up, goes over to the door, there's going to be a hall pass there, along with the log. So you're going to get the hall pass, record your time and name of when you went out. When you come back, return the pass and record the time that you came back, and then go back to your seat. So that's simple.
And you know, keep in mind that some of these procedures may work for you, but some of them may not. It also depends on your group and how well you implement this procedure. You know, it's good to have various ideas, but you've seen it in action. So you mentioned a 90-minute period where it felt like every student went to the restroom during that 90-minute period.
Yep.
I've seen schools that it's like a mall in the hallway. You think it was a mall. And I've seen other schools that it's one kid in the hallway and they're walking fast and getting to their classroom. You know, I jokingly told the principal one time, you need to put stoplights because there's so much traffic going on here, you know, might need, you know, stoplights.
Yeah.
That's way too much traffic in the hallways. And what that tells me, they're not in the classroom learning.
Yeah. This teacher had 2 passes, one for boy, one for girl.
Mhm.
They were both out. There was always a boy and a girl out, and then a couple of times I was like, I have to go with an emergency. So there was 3 students out.
Yeah. 3 students out, things gonna happen in the hallway. You know, it always happens. What's the backside for?
Oh, I wrote it. Same thing.
Oh, in more detail.
It's just in more detail.
Oh, wow.
For the smart addicts. Like whatever, dude.
Oh, okay.
Point by point instruction.
Not,
of what
the students.
The students. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I was like, well, it doesn't say. Well, here it is with more detail.
You spelled it out. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, yeah. calls them smart Alex, I call them superstars. Superstars.
Hi, my name is Anaí. I'm a seating arrangement. How will you do seating arrangement? I put things to consider because, of course, there are things that you have to consider. Like distractions. For example, if you have a student who gets easily distracted, you don't want to sit them by the window or by, I don't know, the door, for example, where people are walking by or leaving to use the restroom or whatever. Student age and size as well. That has a lot to do. I mean, if you have a big classroom, 30 students, you may not be able to seat them the way you would like to. So you have to take that into consideration as well as their age and of course their maturity level, because sometimes they're not, maybe it's not optimal for them, the seating arrangement. And also, of course, your teaching style and objectives. For example, if you'd like a more teacher-centered classroom or student-centered classroom, I put, for example, clusters. I mean, it seems to be a popular one. But I like what Mr. Rivera was saying before about, I had never heard it, about a teacher having different layouts, because for some lessons, one layout may be more appropriate, and for another lesson, maybe another layout. So maybe, I mean, I thought that was a really good idea.
Well, the video shows a very good example.
Yeah.
Training them to switch layouts on the road.
I think that was a very, it's a good idea. And for example, clusters, like I said, it seems to be a popular one because it's more student-based. The students interact with each other. They learn from each other. They work to collaborate. I mean, they learn to collaborate, problem solve, work together. But I think, I mean, also like with everything, there's cons. The con may be that the noise level is going to get really high. Maybe it's a little harder to assess each individual student because they're working as a group and you're getting the answers as a group. But yeah.
And it's good to know also yourself. Are you able to handle clusters and students talking? Because, you know, 2 students talking is one thing, but you have that cluster, that cluster, that cluster, that cluster talking at the same time. It can get loud. It can get rowdy, not rowdy, but it can be, the volume can get loud. And as a teacher, you also need to be able to handle that yourself. Because a lot of us were trained or raised that, you know, you were quiet, working quietly. That's the way we were trained and taught when we were youngsters. But it has changed. You know, they're supposed to talk more. They're supposed to explain, you know, share ideas. They're supposed to do all that. If you yourself can handle it, wonderful. If you struggle with it, then you take that into consideration. And I like the things you took into consideration with distractions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello, I'm Judith, or Miss G. My question was, how will students respond in class? One of the examples I have here, and of course when you're in class you're not going to use all of these, you're going to pick 1 or 2 that work effectively. One of them is clapping or snapping, clapping hands, snapping fingers. Have the students repeat the pattern. Also I have students raise their hand on top, and that indicates stop, all the activities that they're doing. For instance, eyes and ears on me. Then count 2, 3, 2, 1. Another one that I came up with here is have all kids stand by their desk rather than just sitting there waiting to answer a question. You can have them, instead of sitting, standing, and each time which means you're going to have them all participate. In other words, they're all going to have to answer a question at one point or other. And once they answer it, they can sit down. That's pretty much what I came up with here. Of course, I just drew a few pictures, because I'm targeting elementary, so I know visuals is a big thing.
And I know what you mean about standing, because I was at a training today, and then when they had us discuss what was the topic and what, the different ideas we had, they told us, go ahead and stand and just talk to the person that's next to you. We could have easily stayed sitting down, but the fact that we stood actually made the blood flow, And we started interacting more because we stood as we were discussing.
Yeah, and I think that gets them more, they participate more. You're not just gonna call on a few or let the ones that have the answer, if the other ones don't have it, then you kind of go over with it, and if they try, they get to sit down.
Along with that, how will students respond in class? One of the things that you considered establishing, there are teachers that require the question to be answered with the question as part of the answer. You know, what was the role of this person? So when the student answers, the role of the person was, because otherwise they'll get used to giving you a 1-word or 2-word answer. They'll get used to that. And if you accept it, then you've accepted it. But consider, you know, what language they're using. One of the videos that we have that I remember seeing was the academic language that was being used. Were the students responding using the business language? You know, because many students, they want to respond in their own slang or their own style or 1 word, or, you know. So as a teacher, that video, what I liked about it was that the teacher was very, very deliberate in telling the students, use your business language, because that's what's going to get you a job. Now, you want to talk slang, you want to talk your dialect, that's wonderful. At home, outside the school. But here, you're going to use academic business language. In other words, vocabulary is so important. So when students respond, you need to get them used to that, folks. And the best thing you can do yourself is model that behavior. You want the students to speak appropriately, then you model that behavior. And I think I've touched on that in the past. What they see you do, you know, they'll respond to, and they'll get used to it. You know, I've had students that tell me, and this young lady told me that her friends, why are you always using big words? And the girl said, well, that's just the way I talk. That's the way my parents talk. But to her friends, they were big words. You see what I'm saying? It happens. So how you model that for your students, you know, and what you accept from your students makes a difference. Okay, in mathematics, you have mathematics terminology. In science, you have scientific terminology, and that's the approved, you know, method of providing the instruction, but also the language the students are supposed to be using. Same thing in reading, writing. You know, you're gonna have vocabulary in criminal justice. She's gonna have vocabulary in medical or, you know, health sciences. So you need to get the students used to talking like that. Otherwise, you know, if you accept their answers, you know, halfway, that's what they'll get used to. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. So you're getting used to talking. I do want to thank you for sharing. I know that sometimes it's not the most comfortable feeling, but as you discuss, as you learn, you've done your sessions, you've acquired a lot of knowledge just by the sessions you've done, and you still have a little bit more. It's going to come into play when you interview. One of you will be interviewed at the final session with me, and the other 6 will be part of the committee. You'll be back here with me. One of you will be interviewed, and I want to say that's when we'll have a bigger group. So it'll be about maybe 35, 36 around there. So we'll have, it'll be an excellent experience. Okay. So what I want to do now, I do want to touch on this other document, the T-test. Okay. So go ahead and take out your T-test. And the reason I'm going to go over it is because it all goes back to how you will be evaluated, how you will be judged, okay? As a professional, you're going to be dealing with the T-test, okay? That means that in this specific situation, you're talking about a domain covering classroom environment, routines, and procedures. And if you notice, the range goes from improvement needed all the way to distinguished, okay? So as new teachers, you know, they expect from you, you know, to at least be proficient, okay? They understand that, you know, nowadays, to be a distinguished teacher, you know, that can be difficult. But as new teachers, you want to make sure you stick to the middle at least. Because when you're talking about improvement needed, that means that in this situation, few procedures and routines guide students' behavior, maximize learning. Transitions are characterized by confusion and inefficiency. Can you imagine having your classroom procedures described as inefficient and confusing? Now do you see why I'm asking you to start thinking about your style and what you're going to be developing, what procedures? Because if you're doing this the day they walk in through the door, it's too late. You want to start just thinking about those things now. The classrooms don't really change, folks. You'll have chairs, you'll have desks, you'll have your desk. What do you expect from the students? Notice that when the developing section, most procedures, routines, and transitions provide clear direction, but others are unclear and inefficient. How clear will you make them? In a classroom management video that I show, there's a teacher that literally tells them what to unstaple. I don't know if you already saw it.
The guy?
Yeah, with the beard?
Soft-spoken.
Yeah, very soft-spoken. He goes step by step by step. That's how clear he was, okay? Now, some of you may do that. Some of you, I had a thing about telling my students, you will put your name, your ID, and the date on the top right-hand corner. If I don't see it there, it's going to be a problem. So they got used to it. They always, in elementary, you have to remind them that the holes are on the left side. That's how you have to keep reminding the kids, the holes go on the left side, and that way they're not allowed to write beyond the line. But you have to model that kind of behavior. You have to show them, where to write. But just notice the difference between improvement needed and developing. Okay? Students, in developing, students depend on the teacher to direct them in managing student groups, supplies, and others. The whole point of T-TEST, folks, is that in this domain, the students are supposed to know what they're expected to do, and they're supposed to be self-reliant. Because I don't know if you noticed, but by the time you get to this distinguished, the students are doing the most of the work. And that is the whole point of T-TEST. From teacher directed all the way to student centered. The students should be able to function on their own. You know how you're a substitute, right?
Yes.
You can tell when students are in a classroom that is run well because the students know the procedures, they know the expectation, and they don't deviate. And then you walk into another classroom and the students try to get away with stuff. But we don't know. The teacher doesn't do that. They'll try to poke your eyes. So you've already seen the two versions, okay? And you're walking in maybe for the first time in that classroom, and you can tell right away. So think of it this way, guys. What is your expectation when, let's say, the day you're out? Do you expect the student to follow the same procedures with a substitute? They know the procedures, There's even teachers that tell the students, I better not hear that there's any discipline problems. I had a teacher, we were at a training, and she got a call from the substitute. And during lunch, she drove over to the school just to get after the kids, and then she drove back to the training.
Wow.
But she, because that was unacceptable to her. And they got it, those kids got it. And she was a little thing, it's feisty, But the children learned their lesson, and she was new, but she still managed to do that. So the reason I share this with you is I want you to focus on proficient, because really that's where you should be. All procedures, routines, and transitions are clear and efficient. Okay. In other words, you've already told the students, you know what to expect, they know what to expect, and you've made it clear. Under proficient also, students actively participate in groups, manage supplies and equipment with very limited teacher direction. In other words, did I have to tell you where to go get the markers? No, you knew where the markers were, right? Okay. I gave you the paper, but you knew where the markers were. I just told you, make sure you jot down your thoughts. But you knew where the markers were, you went to go get them, not a big deal. So think about students. You have to let them know where are the supplies. The little sample you saw, the little baskets, the black baskets with supplies, those are great little baskets. Now, in some classroom formats where you have clusters, you might have the basket with supplies in the middle, and that way the children share them. And that way they don't have to go and, go get the markers, go get all that, because they have them there in their little cluster, okay? Under proficient, again, the classroom is safe and organized to support learning objectives, and it's accessible to most students. You want to make sure you'll be able to get around. Be careful about backpacks. Be careful about bags, because once you get into secondary, some gentlemen might have satchels, the ladies might have bags, and those things can get in the way. It happens. I've actually tripped over a backpack one time. It happens, So I had my rule in backpacks: put it under your desk or put it right under your feet. In other words, do not leave your backpack in the hallway, because in the little aisle, because somebody can get hurt. And I got them used to that. Same thing with the end of the day procedures, guys. My students had to pick up the chairs and stack them against the wall, and then somebody had to get the broom and do a little bit of sweeping, and they had to prep the room to exit. And I got them used to that. I remember I had a little girl like, I don't know how to sweep. Like, really? Okay, well, you're gonna learn here. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. She didn't know. So like, okay, you hold it from here, you hold it from here, and you go like this, But she had never, or maybe she was just poking my eyes, but either way, she did it, okay? So that's just proficient. That means that you're doing your job when you have established clear and efficient procedures. You're doing your job, okay? In the old system, it's kind of funny, because in the old system, this was great. You're doing great. No, here, you're doing your job, okay? Now, when you move to accomplished, now you're talking about establishes and uses effective routines, transitions, and procedures that she or he implements effortlessly. In other words, you've already trained the kids, they already know what to do, and you don't have to be reminding them all the time. Students take some responsibility for managing student groups, supplies, and/or equipment. Now they're doing it on their own because you've established those procedures. And of course, the classroom is safe for all students, and it supports learning objectives and is accessible to all students. See how that's a little bit better than proficient? Now you're talking about students taking on more of a role of responsibility. The last one, the distinguished, which is the one that everybody aspires to be at, that one is establishes and uses effective routines and transitions and procedures that primarily rely on student leadership. So now you might have cluster leaders. Okay, that's your cluster, you're responsible, make sure everything gets done. So what's happening here, folks, you're trying to get the students to be self-reliant. The teacher that does everything for the students and keeps on reminding them and keeps on having to work with them because they don't get it, that teacher is going to be struggling right here. But the teacher that reinforces, that models it and expects it, is going to end up in this area right here. Okay? Some of you will model it and monitor it very well. Some of you may start forgetting. It happens, folks. Because you get so busy with other stuff that you start laxing a little bit. You start like, oh, it's okay. But just be mindful that if you start, easing up, they're going to get used to that. One of my best lessons when I was a brand new administrator, I remember talking to the secretary and she asked me, did everybody turn in the form they were supposed to turn in? And I said, no, some teachers haven't turned it in. And I was kind of upset, and she goes, it's not that they didn't turn it in, it's that you didn't expect it, and you didn't make them turn it in. So I learned from it, and I was a brand new administrator. I think I was like 26, and we're talking about 40-year-old teachers, So I learned that people get away with what you let them get away with. And this was a secretary that taught me that. She goes, you allowed it. You should have, you told them to turn it in. How come you allowed them to get away with it? So ever since then, it's like friendly reminders, this and that, and I still expect it, so I learned from that. So think of it this way. What are you going to expect from your students? Because the moment you start letting them get away with it, okay, then you allowed it. Think of it that way, folks, okay? Any questions about this? I know that I don't go over T-test itself, but I do like to touch base with T-test and connect it to what the session is. Because ultimately, you need to get comfortable with this, you know? Classroom management for the next few days, there's a T-test component for that, you know? So we'll be going over that during the classroom management section. Any questions? Laredo, any questions? I mean, think of it this way, folks. Whatever you set up in your classroom, that's what you're gonna get. Okay? If you set up a structured environment that kids know that they better behave and that they better do their work and that they better turn it in, that's what you're gonna get. But if you set up a very relaxed environment, which nothing wrong with comfortable, guys. We all wanna be welcome to our classroom. Nobody likes a cold, sad, unwelcoming classroom. Nobody likes it. But there has to be structure, okay? There has to be structure. Otherwise, kids are kids, even as adults, don't we get sidetracked? I don't know about you, but my attention span is very limited, My attention, have you all met Mr. Mendoza?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Mendoza comes to me in my office and he starts greeting me and having that human moment. And I've had to tell him, you got 10 seconds to tell me what you want because my attention span is so out there. But you've experienced it. He greets you and he articulates beautifully. We get along. We're good friends. But my thing with him is get to the point. That's it. It is. He's a wonderful guy, but get to the point because I gotta go. Think of it that way. Mr. Mendoza, short hair.
Yeah.
Very nice guy.
Good moments, good times.
The what?
Good moments, good times.
Good moments, good times. Yes. So, either way, just think of it that way. Whatever you establish, folks, whatever you establish in your classroom, that is your little kingdom. You decide. You decide the layout. You decide what your expectation is. But it really, you set the tone. And your students will follow. Now, will there be a few that, rebel? Yeah, there's always going to be somebody. I'm sure there's somebody that doesn't like to sign in at some point and give John a hard time. I'm sure there's always something, but that's okay as long as you yourself have established the procedures. Laredo, was hoping to get more questions from you. Classroom management is going to come Wednesday, Friday, and then Monday. That's going to be classroom management. I have a lot of scenarios for that one, and I do want to share them with you because ultimately you're going to get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of classroom management, and you'll be exposed. And you will share your own experiences also, guys. I'm sure you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of classroom management also out there, okay? The only thing, please wrap up your index card because that is your exit ticket. So your index card, jot down your final notes so we can wrap it up. Any questions from Laredo? Well, Laredo's awfully quiet today. I do want to thank you guys for showing up today, and thank you for participating. Get used to being on the spotlight. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the door. Thank you guys.